This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
Este es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate. This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
Esta es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate.
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 Este es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate. This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
Esta es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate.
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 Este es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
Esta es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate.
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 Este es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
Esta es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate.
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 Este es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate.
Good morning and welcome to the Riverside Community College District, and in particular, welcome to Riverside City College here in the city of Riverside. We would like to extend greetings on behalf of the Chancellor, Dr. Waldiab Isaak, and the Board of Trustees. My name is Tracy Vicar, and I am currently serving as the President of Riverside Community College District, and I'm excited about being here, and I'm excited about the hearing, and I want to thank the Honorable Senator Richard Roth for hosting this event here with us today, and to bring information forward as our colleagues out there testify. For many of you, I know so many of you out there in the audience that do this work in career and technical education, and I want to thank you for all of your efforts. the last 3 years have been good to us, where we've been able to really start beginning to create those pipelines and those conversations with workforce development, with the colleges, and with the unified districts in secondary education. The importance of what's happening right now, which is around the region for secondary education, which is dealing with the College and Career Readiness Indicator, is extremely important. For them, it's a challenge to make sure that they have the capacity to make sure that not only is the academic piece high and rigorous, but also that they have pathways for students and careers. Joining with them is their partners at the community colleges. And I'm excited to talk to you about some of the work that will be happening here in Riverside with our communities and surrounding us, but also in the Inland Empire. There are so many changes happening with the fact that our secondary education is able to actually build those bridges and those partnerships and create those pipelines, which really I think will have a dramatic effect on the future of our funding as we look at some of the new initiatives that are out there with Strong Workforce and the new career technical education incentive grants that are out there. So Senator Roth, I'm here to tell you that we have done lots of work already over the last 3 years to be able to build those relationships, those bridges. You're going to hear from some of my colleagues in the career and technical education world, and I'm excited to hear what they have to say today. And more importantly, I'm also excited to hear from our guests that are also here that are on the panel that are coming from the state to be able to share with you the work that's being done. So I'm going to turn this over to you and welcome you here on behalf of the Riverside Community College District and RCC. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you, Riverside Community College District. Just an absolutely superb community college district in our state, doing great work day after day, building the future leaders, not only of our region, but of our state. We're here today to discuss a serious issue: how to best coordinate or synchronize career technical education efforts within our K-12 and our community college system. You know, in the past in this state, more often than not, there seems to be missing a link between a person's education and his or her career. And we need to bridge that gap. Governor-elect Newsom has rolled out his, or shared his vision of California's renewed education system, referring to it as cradle to career, a cradle to career strategy, and frankly, he's right. They say that due to automation and digitization, more than 30% of workers in the United States will need to change jobs or upgrade their skills significantly by 2030. And 65% of primary school students today will hold jobs that simply do not exist today. According to researchers, California will be short about 1 million employees with bachelor's degree. And perhaps of more significance to this program, roughly 1/3 of the new jobs created in California will require some training beyond high school, but less than a 4-year degree. So to address these needs, we're going to need to ensure that our CTE programs are agile, that they are collaborative, that they are inclusive, and that they are effective. Obviously, that requires that the programs be well funded, and that's our job. But we also need to ensure that outcomes are measured in some comprehensive and standardized way, so we can make sure that we're getting value for the money that we spend in this state. We're going to have to do this if we expect to meet the challenge of preparing students, both the young and the not so young, for the workplace of the future. So that's why we're here today. Let's get on about it, and let's see how we're doing. Just to sort of tell you how the program's going to work today, or the hearing's going to work, we're going to have the first two panels, and they're sitting right here, do their presentations, and then I will call up the third and the fourth panel in order. So with that, let me introduce and thank Mr. Ryan Anderson from the LAO's office for coming down and for giving us an overview of CTE in California. Ryan?
Give me just a second. Okay. There it is. All right. As the Senator mentioned, I'm Ryan Anderson. I'm with the Legislative Analyst's Office. For those of you who aren't familiar with the LAO, we're the legislature's nonpartisan fiscal and policy advisors. A lot of the work that we do is around the state budget. That occupies a lot of our time from January to June. We analyze every aspect of the state budget and give the legislature recommendations on which proposals from the administration they should adopt, which they should modify. Through the rest of the year, we spend a lot of time on developing independent research projects and responding to specific member requests for additional information or perhaps some guidance on specific questions. Now, I'm here, of course, to talk about high school CTE, and really, I'm just hoping to set the stage for our subsequent panelists, the experts and practitioners who will talk a little more in depth about these issues. But first, I wanted to make sure that everyone's on the same page as far as the acronyms that are going to be used. And a quick reminder of what is high school CTE and why is it important. And in fact, high school CTE has a number of objectives that the state and the legislature in particular care about. And starting with promoting student engagement, there are certain student populations that are just more interested in coming to school if they can learn practical skills in a hands-on manner. With that, of course, we care about teaching those technical skills as well as the soft skills such as communication and teamwork. And of course, the state is also hoping to meet its state workforce goals, in particular in increasing the number of middle-skilled workers that will be available to fill more technically demanding jobs in the future. Now, the Department of Education has developed specific academic criteria for high school CTE programs. Those criteria are aligned with the state's overall academic standards, which of course are the Common Core state standards. And those criteria are organized around 15 specific industry sectors, which are outlined here. This is hopefully intuitive clustering of all the major industries in California. Now, the state has taken several approaches to supporting high school CTE programs, and these can be divided sort of into two buckets, pre and post 2013-14. I'll tell you why that date is significant in just a second. So before 2013-14, the state primarily took what it calls a categorical approach. This means that the state provided some funding that had strings attached, right? Schools could access this funding only if they agreed to run specific programs or meet specific objectives with these programs. In 13-14, the state made a major shift to how it funds K-12 education, and that was with the introduction of the Local Control Funding Formula, or LCFF. The primary idea behind LCFF was that we were going to take all of these categorical programs, not only those related to CTE, but also those related to, say, high school class size reduction or middle school guidance counseling. We were going to take all those categorical programs and the associated funding and roll it into what is essentially a very flexible block grant, this base funding that schools can use for any purpose. Base funding is adjusted for a couple of factors. Most importantly, it is adjusted based on the grades that students attend and also whether a student is low income or English learners. Now, as part of setting those rates, the legislature acknowledged that CTE was an important part of your base educational program, especially in the 9 through 12th grades, and reflecting that they established a base grant for high school that is approximately 19% greater than middle school, and that was explicitly designed to cover some of the costs that are associated with CTE programs. To get you on speed with acronyms, I should also point out, under the pre-LCFF system, we had several high school categorical programs, but by far the largest was this ROCP, which stands for Regional Occupational Centers and Programs. These were specific agencies that provided CTE services. At its height, the ROCP program provided about $450 million annually and supported about 75 of these institutions across the state. Many of them still exist, so you may hear this acronym again in this hearing, ROCP. Now, after the state transitioned to LCFF, it wanted to ensure that the high-quality CTE programs that had been built up under the categorical system continued, and so it established several transitional programs to provide sort of a step down from the previous categorical approach to the new LCFF approach. Most notably, in 2013 and 14 and 2014-15, the state provided about $500 million to the Career Pathways Trust. This was a program specifically intended to improve linkages between K-12 districts and the community colleges. Also at this time, there was a requirement that schools that had been operating ROCPs continue to do so. From 2015-16 to 2017-18, so it was 3 years, the state established a limited-term categorical program called the CTE Incentive. This provided funding directly to schools on a competitive basis to offer, either to introduce or increase or improve their CTE course offerings. But it came with a few strings attached, most notably a requirement that schools make a commitment out of their own LCFF funds to support those same programs. That local match requirement gradually increased over time. So in the first year that this program existed, every school district that was receiving an incentive grant provided $1 out of their LCFF or other general purpose funds for every dollar that they received from the state, specifically for CTE. In its final year, be 17-18, when we just passed through, that requirement increased to $2 of LCFF for every $1 they're getting from the incentive grant. The final piece of this transition was that the state introduced just recently a college and career readiness indicator. This figure describes exactly the metrics that go into that indicator. This indicator is included as part of every district's public school dashboard accountability system. This is accessible online. You can look up a number of metrics to see how your district performs. The college and career readiness indicator, as this figure demonstrates, is designed to indicate that for your graduating seniors, the district has offered them not only a high school diploma, but also the academic or career skills that they'll need to succeed beyond high school. So in order to be marked as prepared under this indicator, the student needs both a degree and proficient test scores or to have completed CTE pathway program. This is part of the state's indicator that we are concerned about what happens to students after they graduate. The most recent data on the college and career readiness indicator suggests that about 50% of California's high school seniors are in the prepared category. About 25% are in the approaching prepared and 25% in not prepared. Now, the subject of today's hearing is largely about the state's most recent actions on CTE. This was in the 2018-19 budget that was just adopted. In that budget, both the legislature and the administration came to a consensus that simply supporting CTE through the LCFF approach wasn't sufficient to ensure the level and quality of CTE programs that both the legislature and administration desired. They wanted to see some ongoing commitment in the form of ongoing categorical programs. In fact, the budget adopted two. I'll talk a little bit about why that was in a second, but first I'll describe the programs. The first was an ongoing extension of the CTE Incentive Grant Program. So again, this is a competitive grant program. It's administered by the Department of Education. School districts or other educational agencies apply and say, this is what we intend to spend the funds on. CD reviews those grants and rewards them based on a number of factors. In exchange for receiving those grants, the schools commit to matching the support at a 2-to-1 ratio, so providing $2 from their LCFF for every $1 from the incentive grant. The other program was an extension of yet another recently developed CTE program that was developed actually at the community colleges level. This is called the Strong Workforce Program. This is a program that is administered by the community colleges. It's organized in an unusual way. Under the Strong Workforce Program, community colleges, K-12 districts, other educational agencies and employers have organized into 8 regional consortia throughout the state. Now, under the K-12 Strong Workforce Program, each of those consortia is going to be given a slice of this $150 million. The amount that each consortia gets is going to be based off of a formula. That formula will consider a number of factors, most importantly, the number of grades 7 through 12 students who are attending in that area, as well as the specific workforce needs of the region. Now, once each consortia has received its slice, that consortia is responsible for determining which specific louder. Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry. I hope I wasn't completely lost the whole time. Okay. Each consortium will be responsible for determining the specific grantees and grant amounts within their consortia among their K-12 districts or other educational agencies. Again, this has a matching requirement. It's 2-to-1, as with the incentive grant program. I did want to talk just a little bit about why did the state do this, and that is the topic of today's hearing. Sort of the short answer is that while there was a consensus in the most recent budget deliberations that both the legislature and the administration wanted to see some ongoing commitment for high school CTE, there was disagreement about the best way to administer that ongoing support. Specifically, the administration supported a program that was conducted by the community colleges. The legislature preferred extending the incentive grant program, which is administered by the Department of Education. Ultimately, the two sides agreed to a compromise, which is that we would establish both of these programs. That compromise was made at a rather late date, and because the nature of budget deliberations, sometimes last-minute compromises come about. There are some important questions that the legislature has yet to answer about this ongoing commitment, and those are laid out here. So I think the questions we're hoping to get a little more insight here, not only from the panelists, but also from the field, and I think most importantly from the legislature, have to do with how will these two programs work going forward. Specifically, how will the Department of Education and the community colleges coordinate their efforts to ensure that there's no duplication of effort in the field? What will be the unique strengths and weaknesses of these two programs? Are they to specialize in particular areas? And also, how will the state evaluate the performance of each of these programs? It's, of course, important that, as with any program that we invest in, that we know that we're having success. So how will we know? That's the end of my presentation. I'll stay up here for questions, or should I sit down?
Well, let me, you can feel free to have a seat if you're more comfortable there. I assume, so if you take the Pathways Trust and you take the CTE incentive grant, it's about $1.4 billion, if my math's right. 900 plus 500. I assume the goal
over that period, yes.
Over that period, I assume the goal of these programs and the follow-on is to make sure that we meet the regional employment needs in the state of California, career technical education. So what are the metrics that were attached to these programs, assuming there were any, and how do we measure success? How have we been measuring success?
I think major concern is that the data, particularly the long-term data for graduates of CTE programs, is not particularly compelling at this point. It's not well coordinated. It is not collected over a long period of time. So while these questions are pretty fundamental, I think right now there still needs to be some work done on exactly what metrics are we going to use and how are we going to commit to recording them. I will let subsequent participants talk about the specific metrics that their segments use to evaluate the programs they administer.
And I didn't mean to jump ahead, but it would seem to me that if we have pathways, for example, MIS, Management Information Systems, or in the healthcare area, we should be able to track whether students move through these pathway programs, ultimately obtain a certificate or a degree or whatever the credential is that you need to move forward, and then secure a job. And is it a well-paying job? Does it meet the students' expectations? I assume that's the kind of system that we ultimately need to develop. I don't mean to jump ahead into your presentations. I'm happy to move forward with the other panelists, and then maybe we can have a little round table before I let you all resume your seats.
Yeah, that might be best, unless...
Yeah, we can talk a lot about the metrics, Senator Roth, in terms of their development, what was in the legislation, which is a mirror of what's been in the CTE incentive grant over the years. So it's nothing different than those. But everything that you described in terms of outcomes, everything that you kind of said on your introductory statement, it is outcome driven. It's about students, meeting those outcomes, whether it be employment-based, whether it be completion-based, whether it be transfer, licensure, certificate, third-party certificate. So what's unique about these data systems now is looking at the transition from secondary to post-secondary and really beginning to measure that space in between. So those are pieces that we're working with CDE on. There's a joint board workforce advisory committee, which is 3 members of the State Board of Education and 3 members of the Board of Governors. All right, yeah, I know. Anyway, your question is well taken.
Let me let you all proceed.
She pulled me off the stage here, so it's all good.
That's what they usually do to me, the hook.
That's our job.
I'll wait for an introduction.
And this is Donna Wyatt, who is the Director, Career and College Transitions Office for California Department of Education, working on the computer.
Yes, not successfully, am I yet? Okay.
They don't let me touch those. I need CTE.
Yeah. We still need, we absolutely. All right, super. Can you see that?
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us, Senator Roth. We're really excited to be here and talk career tech ed. And I have to say, I am a former RCC student, so go Tigers. Yeah.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm Matt Roberts, Dean of Field Operations for the California Community College Chancellor's Office, and working very closely with CDE and Donna Wyatt. So very happy to be here this morning. Thank you, Senator,
Thank you
for having us.
So, yay! So our purpose today, we're going to be updating the K-12 Strong Workforce Program, also the CTE Incentive Grant, some of the promises and the challenges around integration of general education and career tech ed. I'm going to talk a little bit about the College Career Indicator and where CTE falls in that. And then also some of the challenges around recruiting and professional development of our CTE teachers, the role of industry in our programs and programs of study, and then finally marketing to CTE students and to their parents. Just briefly, a definition of what career technical education is. It is a multi-year sequence of CTE courses that expand and build on those skills and knowledge. It is informed by industry and by labor market. there's a progression of work-based learning experiences. You know, we frequently talk about internships as being work-based learning, but it's a continuum. You don't take a high school student and just shove them into industry. You start with smaller types of work-based learning experiences and build them up until the point that they can go into industry and work independently. It's industry credentials and certifications, that bridge that Matt was talking about. It's early college credit opportunities, whether it be articulation, dual enrollment, concurrent, middle college, doesn't matter, it's early college. Credentialed teachers with that industry experience, and then CTE model curriculum standards. And that's really kind of both CTE in the community college and in the K through 12 system. The two programs, and Ryan did a really good job of outlining the two programs, and you can see them here. I think the main thing that I want to say about CTIG is the first CTIG, the $900 million, was really about starting new programs, recovering from the recession and when we lost programs. This $150 million ongoing is more about maintenance and continuous improvement for career tech ed.
And on the community college side, seeing ongoing dollars as part of the state policies and the state budgets is something that's very refreshing for us on both sides of the aisle. And you can see sort of the trajectory of dollars that have come through the system, sometimes connected, sometimes not connected. You can see on the bottom portion where the Strong Workforce K-12 is connecting to the CTE incentive grant, and it's doing so within metrics, and it's doing so within the data definitions that we have been talking about so far. So this is a very good sort of way to connect the systems.
Collaboration and communication across the systems. We're working so closely together at this point. I almost called him last night to find out what he was wearing. I mean, that's how often we are working together through emails, phone calls, meetings. But the collaboration actually started back in March 2016 with the creation of the Joint Advisory. That's when we started working together. The only thing that's happened now is that it's even more frequent. So education across the system, again, what's best for our students, high school on to community college, the face-to-face work sessions, the ongoing review of legislation to ensure non-duplication. We want to make sure that we're not doing the same thing across both initiatives.
Absolutely. So, and the work that we're doing is designed to sort of tag the continuum of services and programs that are currently offered in the field, to work with existing structures, but to also move our CTE investments forward, to move our students forward into a lot of the jobs that are out there. And we read about it all the time. So it's really being on the same page in terms of what our mission is together, and this is really driving it. So it's nice.
I know quite a few of you have been at the regional meetings for the K through 12 Strong Workforce, and we've been trying to present. I can't be there necessarily in person, but I'm a voice on the phone, so we're doing it together.
Absolutely. It's tough to be all over the state.
Again, with the current CTIG, I already made the point, this new CTIG, the $150 million ongoing, is really about the maintenance and improvement of career tech ed. A little bit different in the new CTIG is that there will be an application, but there's also going to be an evaluation tool that LEAs will have to do. And that evaluation tool will have you looking at all of your CTE programs, looking for where you need to be making improvement, and then using those dollars to make that improvement. So a little bit different there with the new CTIG for us.
And on the K-12 Strong Workforce, we are calling them pathway improvements as well, not projects, and don't want to confuse folks there. But this is $150 million that is pushing in from the other side and benefiting LEAs. So $150 million goes directly to LEAs. The regions are not the ones that make the decisions on where those dollars go out. It's a K-12 selection committee that's made up of K-12 folks. So there's a process that's hard-coded in. We have about $14 million that will go towards really bringing together the disparate groups of folks that are out there doing K-12, K-14 type of pathway work. So in other words, how do we bring that talent together, give them one source of funding to make sure that the work is being done, and then also without disrupting the work that you're doing currently? So how do we offer that sort of that help? The K-12 Selection Committee is a group of folks that will meet. They're a subcommittee of the region. And again, the regional structure is just a way to sort of slice and dice the state. It's a way to account for the individuality of the ecosystem or the economy within a particular region. So that's sort of the strategy that's being employed. So we like that strategy. We think it's something that's working. So we will ramp up the K-12 selection committee here in January and sort of run them through the first cycle of dollars, and those dollars will actually reach the field this year.
I mentioned before that we started working together really in earnest back in March of 2016, and that's when the California Workforce Pathways Joint Advisory Committee, getting to the point where I don't have to look it up anymore, which is actually in the California Ed Code section 12053 that calls for a joint advisory committee made up of equal members from the Community College Board of Governors and also the State Board of Education to basically oversee career technical education and make recommendations to the State Board and to the Board of Governors. In the legislation for both K-12 Strong Workforce and CTIG, they're also in this legislation. The joint advisory will be the group that will hear the recommendation with regards to the metrics that we want to use in CTIG and in the K-12 Strong Workforce. And that next meeting is actually November 26th. It's at the State Board of Education from 10 to 3. The advisory will be hearing a presentation and recommendations from Matt and I on what we believe the metrics should be for the 18-19 CTIG. They'll also be hearing about future metrics that we want to explore to add on to in out years for those two pieces of legislation.
Metrics aren't anything that's new. Let's just talk a little bit about that. It's nothing that you're not currently collecting. If anything, what we're looking at are ways to bring out more data from the field, ways to sort of collect more of that outcomes, but also to show the transition, as you say, from college to career, or from post-secondary, or from secondary to college and career. So again, it is still within the college and career milieu. It is still within that discourse.
The joint advisory members, you can see them here from the State Board of Education. The chair for the committee is Member Ting Sun, and then Member Ortiz-Lacone and Member Rucker, and then on the Board of Governors, a new member, Jolina Grande. Pamela Haynes is the vice chair for the advisory committee, and then a new member that joined us in September, Man Fat. And then we also have two ex officio members. They are non-voting members, but they do bring a lot to the committee. Gustavo Herrera of Young Invincibles, and then David Rattray from the LA Chamber of Commerce. Moving on, one of the questions from Senator Roth was around integration of CTE and general education. The benefits are innumerable. Connecting content and context, bringing that real world learning together between CTE and math and science and English and social science. It also allows for industry input into the curriculum, into projects that students might do. There's also quite a few challenges to integration as well. Common planning time for educators. How does a principal master schedule so that teachers come together across content to build curriculum, to build project-based learning? The professional development. Every teacher needs professional development in their standards, but if they're going to integrate, they also have to have professional standards in each other's content. That's very difficult to do, again, without common planning time and without summertime being, professional development. Teacher preparation and credentialing programs sometimes can be a challenge because they're not teaching new teachers how to integrate. They're focused on the standards that they're going to be teaching. So that's something that I think we need to look at. And then it's just simply a mind shift for educators. The idea that we want you to understand, not just have a deep understanding of your content standards, but also have a basic understanding of the other content standards so that you can integrate. The CTE model curriculum standards, as most of us who are CTE practitioners know, the index cross-references both Common Core, Next-Gen Science standards, and the social science standards, as well as the visual and performing arts standards. So everything is cross-referenced. You bring together an interdisciplinary team of teachers, they can look at those standards and see where they connect with one another.
And on the community college side, the integration of funding, the integration of programs, the duplication of services, the reduction of that is really what we're after. We do have a framework that most folks know in the community colleges. It's called Guided Pathways. It's a framework to allow multiple on-ramps and off-ramps for students to make sure that we're connecting students through the pipeline as they come up. Counseling is a very important part of that, and as we know with CTE and career technical education, counseling is often a cornerstone of what we do. But you can see the pillars that are above you are here, not above you, but on here on the screen, and a lot of it is clarifying the pathway, right? Which is a lot of the work that I think that we're doing here, is trying to say what is the correct pathway that a student needs to follow to get to where they're going. So we really believe in this guided pathway approach. As they enter the pathway, do we have them supported? So much like the system of services that a K-12 agency or district or county office would sort of support, and then staying on the path, making sure that students are actually finishing. And so we are looking at data sets currently that look at students that are taking 1 or 2 CTE courses at the high school level, and then what happens when they get to the college level. What's the performance in English and math? What are those specific things? And then lastly, to ensure that there's learning and outcomes taking place. So we think that really meshing together those continuum of services to allow students a pathway. We're very thrilled with some of the integration of funding as well as part of this, because we feel as if that really creates a policy level and some air cover for us to do the work that we're doing.
Ryan mentioned CTE in the CCI, the College Career Indicator. First time that CTE is in the state accountability system. So important. Statewide Career Readiness Indicator, we are expanding it. As we speak, I believe today is the launch of the new fall 2018 dashboard, if I have that correct, so yay. Future indicators will be work-based learning. We're looking at industry credentials. And then further on down the line, we're looking at those standalone CTE courses like medical assisting or nursing assistant that leads to state licensure, as well as we're starting to look at our career technical education student organizations. What would that look like if we tried to put that into the College Career Indicator? We're working towards the point to where we can call it not a college/career indicator, but a college and career indicator, by that having both categories. With regards to CTE teachers, this is a common problem for both of us. How do you find and retain those CTE teachers? And then the professional development piece for career tech educators. CTE teachers bring industry knowledge into the classroom. For students who sit in a CTE class, most of them are there because they want to explore that career. Well, that's where that teacher's industry experience comes into play. To talk to a student about what it is to really be a nurse or an engineer or whatever it might be. That's crucial for a CTE teacher. That industry experience is also necessary to teach those technical skills for a student who is going to go straight into work, or also for that CTE teacher to build industry partnerships. I was a nurse before I became a CTE educator. I had to know that industry to be able to talk to those hospital administrators to convince them to let my students into the hospital to do internships. You can't do that if you don't have that industry experience. LEAs report to us that the primary reason they're not expanding CTE is because they can't find CTE teachers. And right now, because of that, there is a joint study going on between the CTC and the California Department of Education, and we're looking at the shortage of CTE teachers and trying to address that issue.
Something we're dealing with as well, and how do you strategize and how do you incentivize strategies like dual enrollment, things that do require credentialed teachers and credentialed faculty at both levels. So we're looking at ways that we can reduce those barriers that are institutional, that sometimes take us a while to do so. But it's really trying to ensure that you know that the dollars are there to incentivize and really to grow the strategies that Donna was talking about. What are those important things that you do in your classrooms and in your programs that actually move students forward? Let us get out of the way and let you do the great work, but make sure that you have dollars that support what you're doing and the strategies.
I think the other challenge around CTE credentialing and CTE teachers is that professional development piece. CTE teachers need professional development in their model curriculum standards, but they also need some basic knowledge around the other core content standards so that they can do the integrated curriculum, the project-based learning. And then in addition to that, because they're industry teachers, they need to be able to go back out into industry to update their skills, their knowledge about labor market, everything that is upcoming. So it's a multi-layered type of professional development that CTE teachers need, and that's another challenge. The role of industry, kind of touched on it a little bit, but CTE doesn't exist without industry. They inform our curriculum. They allow us to set up work-based learning experiences for our students. They provide equipment recommendations. They tell us about emerging labor market and emerging careers. They're advocates for our programs. And probably most importantly, they provide jobs for our students and those internships for our students.
Say business and industry are really one of our important stakeholders in terms of moving our programs forward. And so we owe it to these folks to be transparent in the work that we're doing. And so the plan is for this first year to take where LEAs want to spend dollars within the K-12 strong workforce and kind of put that up as an analytic for folks to see. Use it for something that our business and industry partners can see, the public investment that we're making in their workforce and our students going forward. So there's a push for marketing, there's a push for that type of engagement. There's a push for aligning the types of engagement that we're doing in those types of meetings. And we know full well that in K-12, your advisory committees are something that you do very, very well. And then the labor market information as it enters into the more data-driven stuff in the colleges. So really aligning around sectors and not getting stuck on sectors either. Really making sure that we're making dollars flow down to students in a way that's getting them to the occupations that are there too. So there's different layers of that labor market information that we want to bring out for industry and our partners out there. So very important.
And finally, I think industry as well. That's where our teachers are coming from. Marketing to parents and to CTE teachers. There's a variety of ways that our folks out in the field do that. There are a couple of national organizations that have marketing materials. The first one is Advanced CTE. That's the Association of State Directors. Multiple different marketing programs. We embedded a couple of videos onto this. I don't know if this will be loaded for folks to see or if we want to take the time to show either one of them, but we can. Out in the field, college career information events, school site visits to college and career centers. Some districts do CTE information days. They do pathway recruitment days. School websites, printed materials, all of those things are available to students, but also to parents to make them aware of the CTE programs. On the community college side,
so it's a constant piece that we have to put out there in terms of really reaching the audience that's moving students into our pipeline, and that's parents. And so not only are business and industry the important link, but also our parents. And so at the community college level, for the past 2 to 3 years, we've embarked on a marketing campaign for career education in the state, career technical education, both on a regional basis. There's marketing that's going in on a regional basis, but also on a statewide campaign. And the idea is to really shine a light on CTE, to shine a light on the important jobs that a student could sort of work through or move up through or badge through or stack through that they can actually lead to the career of their choice. And so marketing is a very big piece, but you can market all day long. The issue is do you have pathways to connect students? Do you actually have something for them to go forth with? And so I think that's where this policy and these dollars really come.
And then finally, back in July 31st, as a matter of fact, we have a new Perkins Act, Perkins 5. It's referred to as the Strengthening Career and Technical Education for in the 21st Century Act. Between 18 and 19, it provided $120 million in federal dollars, split between the CTE or CCCCO, too many C's, Matt, and the CDE. Perkins 5 will become actually effective in 1920, but we're going to use 1920 as a transition year. So for California, Perkins will become effective on July 1st, 2020. And we're going to start holding stakeholder feedbacks probably in late spring. April is when we have to have the transition plan to the feds, so after that we will begin stakeholder feedback, and that will be parents, students, industry, educators, I mean across the board, all over the state. You ain't seen nothing yet. We're going to be all over the place on this one. Oh, yikes, I knew I was going to do that.
And the integration of funds too. So Perkins 5 is no different. It's how do we sort of drive this as a central vision for CTE, for career education. So this joint board advisory is taking into account the different types of programs. So we're excited about it.
We also wanted to add a page of different resources. So the CCTD, the Transition Division, K through 12 Strong Workforce, the Joint Advisory Committee, and then a couple of the national associations, and then the actual new act of Congress for Perkins 5 is on there as well. So it makes for great reading. And that's our presentation. Thank you so very much.
To the metrics, I don't want to spoil the surprise, and it's going to occur, I'm sure, when you have your meeting, but perhaps in a general way, can you, for someone who is not an educator and is relatively uninformed on some of these issues, can you sort of highlight for me what you would expect as part of your joint committee? What should we expect to see in terms of metrics?
I think we want the metrics that you should expect are ones that make sense for the system. They're ones that are reasonable, that we can begin to measure. We always have grand ideas of what we would like to measure, but not always knowing how to measure. We're very cognizant of the fact too that it's got to work for the field. The field has got to see the outcomes of students, and knowing that that's the driver for decisions and that type of thing. We want to make sure that we're onboarded with decision-making tools like the LCAP to make sure that those metrics are aligned within the local control accountability plan. But really it's going back to what you cited, Senator Roth, and that is employment-based outcomes, but also transitional outcomes about completion of coursework, of completion of dual enrollment strategies, completion of certificates, those types of things. So all of those will carry forth its own sort of outcome attainment level to show in the dashboards that we create. So there is a plan to create the dashboard to link it from the CalPADS data system. We do have MOUs in place currently between the community college and CDE on sharing some of the data sets, and we're going to continue to do that.
Yeah, and a couple of the common metrics are what are in the College Career Indicator currently. So it'll be a combination of the College Career Indicator and then some of the other metrics that are common to since 2013 that we've been collecting.
One of the comments that I typically make to the CSU and UC folks when I have an opportunity to speak to them is that, you know, I think in the 21st century we need to be concerned about whether we're meeting our customers' expectations, and in the education field your customers are essentially students and to some extent parents, and I would assume the expectation, certainly at the community college level, is if I go through this program, am I going to get a job? And is it the job that I think is a good job with a good paying salary or wage? I would assume that some of the metrics will point to that.
Definitely, absolutely. Because we hear it all the time, students that come out of a four-year degree and come back and work for Starbucks or something like that, which Starbucks isn't bad, but is it actually giving the livable wage, the wage that we, you know, that's benchmarked, that we feel that folks could live off of? So there's an expectation there too, and that's a push with business and industry on making sure that we're providing jobs that do meet that mark. So it's I think you're right. I think it's a discourse.
And the same K through 12, post-secondary, if you go through a CTE program with a pathway, and at the end of the day, do you secure a job that is a good paying job in the field that you trained for? So I would assume the same metric would apply K through 12 as well.
Right.
Yes.
When you're starting a CTE program, what you're looking at is you're looking at labor market. You're looking at, do I have industry in the area that can support that pathway? And then you're also looking at your post-secondary to say, do I have programs in post-secondary that can go from high school into post-secondary. So you're really looking at all of those things before you ever start the CTE program, as well as you're looking at student interest too. Doesn't hurt or doesn't help to start a pathway that students aren't interested in. So it's all of those things as you begin that CTE program.
And I was pleased to learn when I did some reading on the subject that the community college system already has in place a method and manner by which you can track wages earned post community college experience. I'm not sure that the CSU and the UC have that yet, but I'm in the process of starting that conversation. I think that's an excellent effort. Will you be able to, and we discussed before the hearing started a bit, will we be able to include the post-secondary students in that as well at some point?
The biggest area that we're having success in on the post-secondary is with the CSUs and their data sets. There's talk of creating what's called a data lake, which would allow for different institutions and agencies to sort of share data at in different ways, and so those are certainly things that we talk about. So yeah, you're right.
Rarely. Now, you mentioned challenges. Both of you spoke to the challenges that you have, whether it's the availability of CT instructors or dual credentialing and some of the other items that were outlined in the PowerPoint presentation. How can we expedite solutions to these challenges, and how can, it's a compound question, how can the legislature help in that process, if you're able to speak to that?
I think one of the important things is the stability of the funding as it comes forward, and the notion of ongoing dollars is really signaled, just to talk about the dollar side of it, is really signaled an investment in CTE. And so allowing for institutions to feel as if they can make the investments to create more or better CTE programs or more connections with their, I think that's the first piece that we're after, is giving access to all LEAs and making sure that they know that these are options for them to work from.
I think the other thing is to incentivize businesses to allow employees into the classroom. Sometimes you don't need a full-time career tech ed teacher, you need someone part-time. To allow industry to come into those classrooms, to incentivize businesses to allow that to happen, I think could be enormously helpful.
Does the system allow that sort of part-time instructor at this point, or will that require either regulatory or statutory change to permit that?
Actually, interesting that you asked that. I was talking to Tracy. There used to be within California a part-time CTE credential. There isn't anymore. Perhaps with this CTC study, the commission study that we're doing, that might be something that we want to look at again for those teachers that are only teaching maybe 1 or 2 periods a day. That might be a possibility of bringing that back. I saw a really good example just a few weeks ago in Sacramento with a high school that has police officers coming in 2 and 3 times a week to teach in their police academy. Those are police officers, they got their credential and now are in the classroom bringing those skills and that knowledge to those students. So that's a wonderful partnership. More of that would be really helpful.
Well, I look forward to working with you on these challenges. I can see that they're real, but they need to be solved. We'll have a new governor in play, and with his cradle to career theme, I think that probably signals an even greater interest in CTE on the first floor than we've seen in the current administration. So, any final comments? Yeah. Let's thank our presenters. Thank you very, very much. Let me ask our next panel, CTE K-14 Partnerships with Workforce Development Boards, Leslie Traynor, Wendy Frederick, and Kimberly Davidson to join us in the front. As they're coming up, Traynor is Deputy Director, Workforce and Economic Development, County of Riverside. Wendy Frederick is the Principal Development Specialist, Workforce and Economic Development for the County of Riverside, and Kimberly Davidson is the Economic Development Manager for the City of Corona.
USB fit in on the first try. That's huge. It's a good sign. Okay. Thank you. There we go. Is this microphone wireless? Can I?
Yes.
Nothing will explode if I stay there in one spot? Okay. Oh, I see. All right. Can everybody hear me okay? All right. Good morning. My name is Leslie Trainer. As Senator Roth so eloquently introduced me, I'm the Deputy Director of the Riverside County Economic Development Agency, and I also serve as the Deputy Director for the Workforce Development Board. I am new to my position, so many of you I've had the pleasure of seeing out in the field, but some of you, this will be my first time putting eyes on you. As was said, some of you have been voices on the phone, but I've not met you in person. So because I'm new, I actually brought with me the brains of our operation today. She'll be up here in a moment joining me, but that's Wendy Frederick, who, if you're in the world of workforce development, you've definitely seen and talked to and had the pleasure of working with Wendy. So we're going to tag team it today. So Senator Roth, we would like to extend our appreciation on behalf of the Riverside County Workforce Development Board for being involved in today's hearing. We appreciate the opportunity to provide input. As you're probably aware, the chairman of our Workforce Development Board is also a longtime member of the State Workforce Development Board. And he's actually going to be in Sacramento this Thursday for the state's last Workforce Development Board meeting of the current administration. And he takes every opportunity to provide input from our perspective. So we're just real glad to be here today. So we're going to be talking about workforce development and CTE partnerships. And my objective in being up here is really to provide information about workforce and CTE partnerships from the perspective of the Workforce Development Board. It's been really interesting to sit in the audience and hear it from other perspectives, but Wendy and I are going to speak with you, and probably Kim, from the vantage point of workforce and economic development. And to that end, we're going to cover three main topics on our little 5 to 7 minute journey this morning with me, and 5 to 7 minutes with Wendy. First, I want to talk a little bit about the services that Riverside County Workforce Development provides. That is to give you an idea of the structure of our system, which definitely plays a role in how we partner with CTE, and also the ways that we collaborate with our education partners. And then Wendy's going to bring it home talking about moving forward. So how many of you have heard, if I say AJCC, how many of you in the room know what I'm talking about? Okay, a good number. That's great to know. We've been doing our job. High five, distance high five. So we used to be called Workforce Development Centers or one-stop shops, and with the passage of the 2014 Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, or WIOA, came the days of the AJCC, and AJCC stands for America's Job Centers of California, and those are basically the same as workforce development centers, but with more support and presence from our partners. So we are the caregivers of the workforce development system through the AJCCs. And what we do as our mission is we provide leadership to the workforce development system through support with economic development and talent management. And how we do that is we provide oversight of the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, or WIOA, funds that come through the County of Riverside Economic Development Agency. So we provide services to three primary populations. The first population are adult job seekers, maybe folks who have been laid off, they're unemployed, or they're underemployed currently. We provide services to youth and to businesses. So for job seekers, for those adults who come see us for assistance, We provide one-on-one individualized career coaching. We have all different kinds of workshops designed to help folks get ready to enter the workforce. Resume writing, we do mock interviews, basic work etiquette. You know, when you're at the office, it's not okay to put your feet up on the desk. You can't take personal phone calls at the phone in the cubicle. I see some of you laughing. Maybe you understand what I'm talking about, that it is important for those things to be explicitly taught in some cases. We also provide job training assistance. We at the Workforce Development Center don't actually provide the job training. Rather, we have relationships with entities that do that for us, and we subsidize that job training in providing vouchers for up to $8,000 per person for that training. And we deploy those services all throughout Riverside County. We have 2 primary AJCCs, one in the city of Riverside, not too far from here on Spruce in Iowa, one in Indio. We have 3 additional access points, one in Merino Valley, one in Blythe, and there's one in Hemet that is currently an access point, but it's going to be a full-blown AJCC in the next few months. We also have a mobile workforce development center, and we like to deploy that around the county as needed. Our youth program is structured a little bit differently, and I want to start by saying those of us who are in the profession know that oddly enough, there are different definitions of youth. What do I mean by youth? Under Workforce Innovation Act, it's individuals who are 16 to 24 years old. So we don't actually deliver services through the county at this point directly for our youth. We receive funding from WIOA that's earmarked specifically for that age group, and we've contracted with 2 different entities to deliver services for youth, and those are delivered through 6 youth opportunity centers all throughout Riverside County. And folks 16 to 24 can go to those youth opportunity centers where they find career exploration, skills training, employment development, and usually other services and resources are available at those hubs for the kids. For businesses, we have lots of actually great concierge services that we provide businesses. One of the big ones is on-the-job training, or OJT. You might see that acronym might have snuck into my PowerPoints. But for on-the-job training, we can provide customers from our workforce development centers who are looking for jobs. We can provide those individuals to employers who have open positions, and we can subsidize about 480 hours worth of training. It decreases the risk for those employers to take on those new employees, and obviously that's good for cash flow. We're providing about half of their wages while they're in training, in the hopes that those employers will hire those folks on full time. We've actually just started doing incumbent on-the-job training, meaning we want folks who are at lower level jobs, we want to train them to move up so that they are increasing their own wages and then vacating those positions, leaving those open for new people to come into the workforce. We do recruitment events. We help Amazon quite a bit with recruitments, and other local employers will have those at our workforce development centers. We will market for those employers. We'll even pre-screen potential employees that come to those events. And we have other solutions for businesses who are maybe not doing so well. We can provide them assistance. And we also have rapid response. So when we receive notification that large employers are going to be laying folks off or going out of business, we can respond by sending our team in with resources for what those employees have as their options. Particularly valuable because we work closely with the state of California and their unemployment insurance services. So just wanted to give you a visualization of where we have services deployed throughout the county. Senator, you'll probably recognize this horseshoe looking thing as being your very own district. So within your district we have, it's difficult to see, but towards the top, let's see, can you do the mouse here? Can you see the mouse? No. Towards the top is our Rubdo Youth Opportunity Center. We have our main Riverside AJCC, We have our Moreno Valley Youth Opportunity Center, our Moreno Valley Access Point. We have our Paris Youth Opportunity Center in District 31. And quite a few of our partners are in these very difficult to see, tiny green diamonds on this map. But we do have lots of resources, workforce development related resources in your district, as well as the rest of the county. So the Workforce Development Board had to make some decisions about where we wanted to focus our efforts and resources. And so over a few years and discussions and poring over labor market information, it was determined that we were going to focus on 5 primary industries. And those industries are manufacturing, utilities and renewable energy, logistics and transportation, construction, and healthcare. And we commit those to memory using the acronym MULCH. That's how when I first came to Workforce Development, Wendy would text me all the time, mulch, remember mulch, okay, mulch. In the eastern portion of the county, because that is a very different demographic, we have 2 additional industry foci, which are agriculture and hospitality. Now, we collaborate with our partners in lots of interesting ways, and some of that is a function of law. We're mandated to collaborate with certain partners, and some of it is a function of it just makes sense to do that. We have overlapping clientele. We have folks in the education system who come to us. It just makes sense to do that. So just to give you an idea of the breadth of some of our collaborations and partners, as I said previously, we do work really closely with the State of California Employment Development Department, or EDD. In fact, they are co-located with us in Riverside, in Indio, and they're about to be co-located with us at our Hemet office. And it's that co-location with the state that really transforms a one-stop shop into a full-blown America's Job Center of California. We partner with Department of Rehabilitation. That's a mandatory partner pursuant to WIOA. Department of Public Social Services, we partner with them. We have a lot of overlapping clients. We have a memorandum of understanding with DPSS locally, where we take in some CalWorks recipients, and not only do we have them as temporary employees in our own department, we're putting our money where our mouth is. We think people should be training folks, we're big on the earn and learn, and so we are doing that ourselves. We have temporary office assistants who are CalWorks recipients. We actually just hired full-time 2 of them. That's a great success story. And then we help hundreds of other CalWorks recipients become placed with employers and then subsidize the first year or so of their employment, again, to encourage the employers to take a chance on these employees, allow those employees to build skills and to develop their resumes as well. Goodwill Southern California is one of our partners who is co-located with us. Community Action Partnership is a branch of the county. They're not co-located, but we work closely with them. Inland Empire Job Corps is in our building. California Family Life Centers is actually, we work with them in 2 different ways. They are one of our providers for our youth opportunity centers. And we have actually contracted with California Family Life Centers to run the county's the Youth Advisory Committee, so the YACs, and they work with the Board of Supervisors. And there's some student interns that work in that program as well. So California Family Life Centers has contracted with us to operate that program. We work with the Riverside County Office of Aging, the El Sol Educational Center, a majority of the Indian tribes in the area, and California Indian Manpower Consortium Incorporated. Relevant to this room, we have quite a few valued and treasured education partners. I know in the 7 months that I've been in my position, have so enjoyed working with the education partners. Donna, I mean, this is the 2nd meeting we've been in together today, so it's very nice to have allies on the education side. We do work closely with the Office of Education. Learn for Life Charter School is one of our partners that's in our building. We really enjoy the work we do with the community colleges. Norco College has some really cool stuff going on there, lots of innovative things with apprenticeships. Mount San Jacinto Community College, we definitely enjoy working with them and the cool things they're doing in Southwest County. And of course, we're working with the Unified School Districts. Would like to really continue doing more of that and do it more more deeply, just more of that type of collaboration. So with WIOA, because it mandates some of these partnerships, it seems like they were looking ahead and saying to themselves, the good folks who wrote WIOA, this is a lot of working together for these very large agencies, many of whom are government or quasi-governmental, and it has the potential to have a lot of overlap of service, which I think I heard a warning mentioned this morning about that exact type of thing being a possibility. So one of the things that we've implemented is a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, between Riverside County Workforce Development and our partners. And that MOU sets forth our expectations and our roles in collaborating, how we're going to provide services, who's going to be present on site at the AJCCs and who's an off-site partner, how are we going to coordinate to avoid gaps, and specific ways to address career pathways. I can tell you that it obviously any of you who are working in this field right now understand that even just the coordinating of services, it looks so simple. It's like, oh yeah, well we'll coordinate services. That makes sense. But when you put it in action, it's a lot trickier to actually do. So that is something that is a work in progress, which is getting rid of those silos that I heard mentioned earlier, talking to each other in a way that's efficient, and getting rid of those gaps. So more on that and about moving forward, I would like to bring up Wendy Frederick.
Well, as Leslie said, I guess I don't consider myself a brain. I've just been around a long time. So, and I actually am based out of the Coachella Valley. So I would just want to talk about the fact that when we start talking about CTE for the K through 12 system, is that we do mostly do most of our work with the adult schools. Because we provide direct service to adults, and we contract out with our providers for the youth. And even in that scenario, according to WIOA, the biggest percentage of funding needs to be sent on out-of-school youth and not in-school youth. So how we actually have worked with and will continue the kind of steps we're talking about with a school would refer the CTE student to workforce development. We determine eligibility. They either have to meet our criteria as being adult, which is mainly low income, or they're a dislocated worker, which is basically someone that's been laid off, unemployed, that type of thing. And then once we determine they're eligible for our program, we can either help them find a job and get them to an employer, or we could actually continue their education through one of our training programs. If we refer them to employer, then we can actually do on-the-job training. And our on-the-job training basically is a maximum of 480 hours, and we will reimburse the employer half of the wages. Now, this is ideally how this should happen, but everything's based on relationships. And when you look at how large the county is, and we have two comprehensive centers, one in Riverside and one in Indio. And the type of folks that we're talking about can't necessarily make it to our center on a continuing basis. So what we're actually doing, working with Jody and Chrono Norco, is that we are going to basically train the trainer. We're going to train their staff on our orientation, and our educational alternatives workshops. So they can provide that on site. So that if someone is then referred to us at the WDC, they only have to come once necessarily, because even though it's not that far, it takes a long time to get from Corona to Riverside, is they would only have to come once with all their documents that we have to verify to determine their eligibility. And then the career coach can work with them, through email, through texting, or they can actually come back and work with them on that basis. So that's kind of how the systems work right now, because we're all into learn and earn is the best way for us to keep our folks here in Riverside County, is for them to be able to learn while they're earning funds. So with the strong workforce, we are actually trying to promote apprenticeships, because of the fact that that is one way that we could actually look at paying for apprenticeship. It would provide consistency at the state level if we can use an apprenticeship program. We work closely with the Strong Workforce Initiative and have with the community colleges for a long time. We've been invited to retreats with the community college system since I think 2008. So we've been collaborating for a while. This doesn't happen overnight. So we've actually worked with the Strong Workforce Initiative and especially with Launch, which is based out of Norco. And they're actually looking at trying to build a system to make it easier to get through the apprenticeship, to get it on the state system. Because if they get it on the state system, then it's eligible for us to spend our training dollars. There's only certain schools that are allowed on what we call the education training and provider list. And so it has to be on that list in order for us to pay for funding. We actually participated in the Inland Empire's Desert Regional Consortium and K-12 workforce update that Dr. Roberts, and we heard from also over the phone, Donna. So on November 5th. And at that event, it brought together the K-12 system, the career pathways, or like schools, the community colleges, to try and determine how are we going to proceed with doing the strong K-12 workforce into the college system and what makes sense. And like I said, we're actually trying to concentrate on apprenticeship. And I've been advocating since I discovered this legislation that we do followed AB 288 legislation allowing for dual enrollment for CTE as a way for high school students to earn classroom training while they're in school and then be part of a recognized apprenticeship program. So what this means is now through this legislation you can do dual enrollment for CTE. We would look at developing an apprenticeship program that we can get on the recognized by the Division of Apprenticeship Standards, and we would actually have the 140 some or 160 hours of what they would need for their classroom training as part of what they're learning while they're in high school. So that's something that I've been advocating for and will continue to try and get. We're actually meeting on Thursday. Okay. And we have actually worked with K through 12 system primarily through the career academies. And the reason we've worked through the career academy system is because if they've been in a cohort, since they've been in 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade, the employers in that region have been working with them and know them. And we're actually thinking that they are willing to look at an apprenticeship program for those types of students because they have experience with them. We actually submitted a transformational climate communities grant this past. It seems like it was, yeah. It's a $23 million grant that's actually in Senator Roth's district. And some of the things that we applied for workforce projects include that the EPIC Adult Career Center students that are earning their high school equivalency could also enroll in a CTE program for agriculture. And then on top of that, we're looking at North High School is actually looking at doing a community or school garden program, and that could feed into a next-gen urban farming apprenticeship that actually would be probably coordinated by Riverside's Food System Alliance, with the employers being under that nonprofit as a way to look at it. And this is a system we're looking at to actually get some of the funding to the employer. Because right now there's lots of money coming out for the education part, but for a new employer or a non-traditional employer to spend 2,000 hours of training and apprenticeship, we should try and give them a little incentive for them to get to that point. The other thing that we're doing with that is we have a solar installation training and certification program with Grid Alternatives, which is a nonprofit, and RCC, where they would earn their industry recognized credential, which is the North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners Certification, which is NABCEP. And that was all based on a project we did in the desert called Green Pathways Equals Green Paydays, where they're actually getting hands-on experience through the nonprofit. And the nonprofit wins because they get the volunteer help, and the individual that's low income gets solar on their home, and we end up getting people trained in that profession. Some of the things that I think we need to look at is we have to make sure that the employer is accepting of the training is viable. We have seen that if we can work with an employer as a pre-hire type of situation, that works best. Under our Slingshot grant, we actually had a manufacturing group that looked at the training, and they interviewed people, and they said if they people were trained in that specific manufacturing, that they would actually hire them. We've also been looking at the same thing with IHP, because they want community health worker training done specifically by Loma Linda University. So they are actually looking at pre-hiring, reviewing people and actually going to hire them and then put them through the training, and they will be hired while they're actually getting their education. And some of the other things that need to be done is I talked about the fact that we're collaborating, and some of the systems do not bode well for us to be able to track. And one of the things I think we can actually need to look at is the system of CalJobs. It's kind of the whole system for us to be able to track where people are as far as case management in the workforce piece. And with our partners, we've had some glitches about confidentiality, but some of those things hopefully can be resolved in the future as a means of being able to communicate together. That's what I talked about before, that there needs to be an incentive for the employer for registered apprenticeships. Right now, most of the non-for-profit ones, we actually have a couple of for-profit apprenticeships, and most of that's all going to the training that we pay for. It's all going to the classroom training, and none is really going to the employer. And I think that's why we need to actually look at some kind of incentive for the employer, and that's why we're looking at this apprenticeship program at the community colleges and probably nonprofits like Food Systems Alliance, because they would actually put money in the apprenticeship cost that would help the employer as well as the training. And, you know, we have been working in the desert for a long time with linked learning and the career academies. There's actually 30 career academies and 17 career pathways in the Coachella Valley. And that's where we're looking at trying to develop some of the apprenticeship programs and the dual enrollment that I talked about. But because they are advanced, you know, and we've been working with them for a while, they need the hard costs. They actually need, in order to be 21st century, some of the equipment and some of the things that they need day in and day out for the supplies need to be part of the funding for this program. So that's
As Ms. Davison is getting her material on the screen, let me just ask a question of you two. In terms of Workforce Development Board and K through 14 and the linkage, I assume from the presentation that the board helps K through 14 entities identify regional labor needs and training requirements in terms of setting up pathways in their programs. Does that happen?
One of the things we do is at our meetings, at our full board meetings, at our committee meetings, we oftentimes will have our partners in education present at those meetings. And we generally try to share labor market information to provide input to the employers that are there, to our educational partners that are there, in terms of what the hot industries are, where the jobs are, what occupations are in demand.
Because that would be sort of critical information if we're going to be planning an education and a training program, whether it's in K through 12 or in the community college, because you want people to be training to do a job that exists and is where employees are needed, right?
And the community college system actually has identified 6 industry sectors / occupations, and a majority of them do match what our mulch acronym. The other thing is under Slingshot and some of the things we talked about, because we are actually at a point where we're going through the process of updating our regional plan, and we've had CTE programs and stuff in that discussion, is looking at the fact that we have through our Slingshot project, we have like industry coordinators. And so maybe having those industry coordinators go and visit the CTE program and make sure that, because they are connected already with specific employers. So that's a way for us to continue to provide expertise to the CTE programs.
Well, I've got a couple more questions, but I'm going to hold them and allow Ms. Davison, who's waiting patiently to begin her presentation. I will want to ask about metrics in workforce development, and I will also want to ask about how we can help. I noticed money for employers and equipment, and maybe we can get it and be a little bit more specific when it comes time to Q&A. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And that is a great segment into what I'm going to talk to you about today, in that we are getting the educators and the industry together in one room every other month. Hello, everybody. My name is Kimberly Davidson. I am the Economic Development Manager for the City of Corona. And while CTE programs span across a multitude of different industries, what the program I'm going to talk to you about today has to do specifically with manufacturing. In the city of Corona, we have 400 manufacturers, and we spend a lot of time focusing on those manufacturers to make sure that they have everything that they need in order to thrive in our city and in our region. California is the #1 manufacturing state in the nation. Most people don't know that. It's not widely known that you can do manufacturing here in California, but we are here to tell you that is not true. It is a very vibrant industry that is alive and well in California. One of the reasons that we want to focus on manufacturing is for every $1 spent in manufacturing, another $1.89 is added into the economy. And for every 1 worker that is hired into manufacturing, another 3.4 workers are hired elsewhere. So you can see that, and by the way, they think that that is a very conservative multiplier effect. They think that the multiplier effect is very much larger than that. So you can see why in the city of Corona we make it our business to really support our manufacturers. But now that I have been doing this for about 10 years and speaking with our manufacturers, the one thing that is overwhelming a problem for them, a challenge for them, is finding a skilled workforce. So we have these robust CTE programs, and we have a lot of manufacturers that need to hire somebody. Where is the communication gap? Well, so we started the Workforce Strike Team. Cool logo. If I do say so myself. I just want to give kudos to Corona Norco Unified School District and to Norco College, RCCD, because the opportunity actually came from them. And in my years of doing this, I've never had the educators approach me and say, hey, we want to be connected to industry, can you help us out? So that was pretty cool, and that was very forward thinking of them. So we got together and really tried to think about how we can connect industry to our CTE education programs and how we can shorten the lines of communication, make sure that our students are getting jobs in the region, and make sure that our CTE programs have the type of curriculum that the manufacturers need in order to hire a skilled workforce. So basically we meet every other month. Our first meeting was September 12th. We met at Norco High School. And it was an opportunity for manufacturers to meet with the educators and to also take a tour of the CTE program there at Norco High School. And then our second meeting was actually this morning, and we met at Caldrolics, which is an aerospace manufacturer in Corona. And that gave our educators an opportunity to tour a manufacturing facility and see what processes are actually in place and what is needed. There is no cost to be part of this team. And we want to be inclusive. We want to include everybody. It started with Norco College, CNUSD, and then the City of Corona and a group of manufacturers. We are looking to grow that. The Riverside County Workforce Development Board has been in attendance to our meetings, as well as some other community partners and resources. So our other partners, you can read up there, but notably the Naval Surface Warfare Center is very interested in what we're doing with this team. Corona Chamber of Commerce, of course. Workforce Development Board, Riverside College District, among other things, CMTC, which is California Manufacturing Technology Consulting, which is a nonprofit that helps manufacturers. So we have a lot of resource partners, and we are always looking to add more. We would like to add more educators. We really want to make this a regional push to make sure that all of our manufacturers in this region have what they need in order to become the best in California. And so the goals of this team are really to improve communication between industry and the educators. Number one, our manufacturers just don't know where to go for a skilled workforce. They don't know where to look. They don't know who to call. They now do. In Corona, a good majority of them now know who to call, but we're working on that. We need to get the word out to manufacturers more and more that we have a connection to a skilled workforce. We need our educators to make sure that they're constantly questioning their curriculum and making sure that it is the jobs that we don't know that are going to exist in another 10 or 15 years, and to always be improving that curriculum and coordinating with the manufacturers to make sure they understand what the curriculum needs are. We found out one this morning. They need someone that's trained on a particular type of machine, and as it turns out, Norco High School has that. So that right there might have been a really simple connection that we made possible. We really want to make our manufacturers aware of apprenticeship opportunities. Certainly, I love the idea of the employer incentives to hire apprentices and to incentivize them to do so. We are currently working on the issue of getting high school students into these programs. because of liability and insurance reasons. It's not as easy as it may sound. And also there is another portion of this which was mentioned I think earlier this morning, is that there's a marketing piece that where we really need to get parents and the community understanding the importance of manufacturing, the importance of career readiness, and not focus so much on sending everyone to a 4-year university and placing students where they're going to thrive and really do their best for our industry and for our community. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you so much.
Corona is doing an excellent job, both not only for the city, but I guess for the region in terms of identifying the job needs, both in the city and regionally. And how can we improve how we do that, not only in this region, but across the state? Because it seems to me that's critical if we're talking about pathways and training programs and sort of drilling down and identifying those specialized individual job needs that employers certainly in this region have, whether it's a specialized type of welding or in this particular case a machine operator that needs to have particular skills on a particular type of machine. How do we do that? How can we do it better?
Well, I think one of the ways that we could do that better is I would love to see the state of California, Sacramento in particular, paying more attention to manufacturing and bringing more awareness to that. Most of my manufacturers feel like they are out there alone. They don't know who to talk to. They've been told that they can't do business in California, that it's not business friendly. I think if we start bringing more awareness to the fact that it is, when I tell my manufacturers you're one of 400 in Corona, they're shocked. They think they're one of like one. So bringing more awareness to manufacturing in general and bringing more support for it, even just in a marketing and just showing them more support, showing them more encouragement, talking more about manufacturing in California, I think will start to bring about the changes that we would like to see and open up the forum for people to be able to know where the avenues are to go to get that kind of help. Our students will understand that there's a vibrant manufacturing community out there and the types of jobs that are available. Right now it's just something we don't talk about. Nobody understands manufacturing. In Corona, we are 99% full. Our industrial parks are 99% full. Across Southern California, they're 95% full. Most people are shocked when they hear that because all they've been told is business is leaving California and you can't manufacture here. So I think situation number one would be turning that message around.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, a lot of the messaging is somewhat negative. In some cases for some reason, but I think there's a lot of positive to talk about, and I do think we need to continue to emphasize our manufacturing base. I mean, California and aerospace industry, aerospace was key to California's growth and success over the many years, and that's just one of the types of manufacturers that have helped make California the state that it is today. In terms of connecting with the LEAs, the educational units, the community college, the K through 12, was that difficult? And I gather you took the lead in terms of trying to identify jobs and particular skills required in the city as opposed to it coming from the educators?
Well, it was a meeting initially between Norco College and Corona Norco Unified. And then having built up a reputation in Corona of someone who can coordinate with manufacturers, that's how I got called into the meeting. But truly, it did start with the educators in this situation. Throughout the years, I have been trying to create programs like this, and it seems that I get the educators interested, and by the time I go over to the industry and get them, it just doesn't work all that well. So for it to come from a particular side, and then to have them help me go over and get the other side interested as well, it really has come together much more easy that way. So it did actually come from our educators.
And with respect to the workforce development folks, does your charter allow you to, and funding, allow you to participate to any extensive degree in this skill identification process? Is that a fair question?
Yeah, no, we actually, through the state, this Slingshot project that I was referencing, They've identified in San Bernardino and Riverside County, because that's our region, manufacturing and logistics. And one approach that we had was the fact that we hire somebody from industry to work with industry to help identify more of those needs. And so we have someone that's worked in industry for a long time that's actually coordinating and working with manufacturers throughout both counties, which is a huge area for manufacturing, and then also in healthcare. And then this year we're actually going to be hiring a someone in logistics, because those are the three areas. So and then the skills they're helping to identify based on what area, what manufacturer, the specific skills that they may need for that region.
For example, let me just, and I don't know the answer to the question. If I happen to be an aerospace manufacturer in Riverside and I was having trouble finding a particular type of employee with a skill set, would I know where to go to deliver that information so it could be passed on to the community college or the K through 12 districts? Would I know to come to you, for example, as a workforce development board, or the new name?
I don't know.
Yeah, I can speak to that too. So the answer, quite frankly, is probably no. I think that we do have a big marketing and advertising problem. We constantly refer to ourselves as the best kept secret. We have there's so many resources we have just at our workforce development centers, so many resources that we have for businesses. The on-the-job training subsidies are just one huge example. And people don't know when our staff goes out and knocks on doors of businesses and says, hey, can we pay 50% of somebody's salary for you if you take them on? A lot of the times they think we're joking or that it's a scam. So to answer your question very frankly, Senator, it's quite possible that a business may not know where to begin. One of the things that we hope to do to change that is to have those types of business members join or participate in our workforce development board, so that they can see the types of resources that are available and provide us input. So we as workforce development staff attend those meetings, and we listen for that sort of input from our partners, primarily from our business partners too. Because those are the places where we tend to intersect them most, is at our workforce development board meetings and the committee meetings. So, that's one possible solution, but I think that is just symptomatic of an underlying issue of a lack of awareness of the fantastic resources that are available.
Well, perhaps we can, in the spirit of collaboration, perhaps we can figure out a way to sort of, on a larger scale, replicate what Ms. Davidson has done successfully and her partners in Corona. I noticed the Corona Chamber was involved in your effort, and I believe there used to be a manufacturers association there as well. I think maybe we can, the workforce development folks and others, engage with other chambers and similar organizations to get the word out that, hey, we're in the business of identifying labor needs in the region, both for your placement programs and for the training programs that are currently being developed and implemented both at the K through 12 level and community college level, and I would be delighted to help facilitate that in any way that I can. Let me ask one question. You mentioned I understand the employer incentives for apprenticeships, and if there are ways that we need to help up in Sacramento to facilitate the recognition of apprenticeship programs, I would be delighted to help with that. On the equipment side, you mentioned that. How does that work, and what can we do for that?
I'm just saying that there's some CTE programs that are very expensive to actually have at the high school level, like welding, and bringing in like not just maybe basic welding, but fabrication, the stuff that's needed for fabrication, or that those that are already advanced they just need supplies to be able to continue the quality education and training that they've started, because there are some that are very well advanced already with these career academies.
I'll need to explore that to see what the funds current level of funding can be used for and what it can't be used for, and I completely understand that. We have similar problems in STEM academies as well, trying to equip those new facilities or expanded facilities, and where that money comes from and how it's used. So I'll take that on and we'll take a look at that.
And you were talking about knowing about metrics. And one of the things that we actually have a difficult time with is we have performance measures that we have to do. And so at the state level, when someone's employed, we can contact after a certain time, we get from Department of Labor that they're employed, and that the company and the wage. But we get asked, is it training related employment? We have to guess. The employers, through their actual taxes and stuff, report the occupation and what industry they are involved in, but the two don't relate. So that's one place that we actually can use some help as far as having, when we get the information back from EDD about someone that's been employed, that we get more than the business, because we can't always tell by the name, and the wage, if it's training related employment, because we don't know, because they don't tell us the occupation or the
That's sort of crazy. Do you know the reason for that?
No.
Well, we'll take that on too, because it's important not only in your area, but as you may have heard me mention before, I think it's and the community colleges obviously are down the road on this, but it's important on the educational side to know if, particularly in higher ed, if we're providing students with an education that's going to translate into a job, and it's a job they want and a good paying job, and the only way to do that is to develop some link, at least in California with the Franchise Tax Board and the EDD, to link the data, even if you sanitize it so we protect the names and all that. But we're gonna have to make sure that we streamline our systems a little bit better, so that legislators and the governor, the administration, gets the information it needs in order to formulate budgets, because you want to reward good performance with more money, but you need that as well.
Yeah, for our Board of Supervisors.
To measure your success in this effort. Well, how about we thank this panel of participants. Excellent job. Now let's call up our fourth panel. I think before we start, I should let you introduce yourselves, or I could do it. Why don't I start to my left? Ma'am?
I'm Dr. Maureen Sinclair with Norfolk College. Gina Boster, I'm the Director of Career Technical Education for the Corona-Norco Unified School District.
I'm Christine DeMemo. I am the Dean of Career and Technical Education here at Riverside City College.
And I'm Ron Weston, CT Coordinator for Riverside Unified School District.
And I want to thank all of you for joining us. This portion of the program is on joint CTE partnership efforts. So take it away.
Good morning, soon to be afternoon. Thank you, Senator Roth, for having us today. I'm going to spend just a few minutes talking about our programs in Riverside Unified. We heard this morning about LCAP funding. We heard about CCPT grant funding and CTE incentive grant funding. In 2014-15, our USD had 12 CTE pathways, and today we have 38 that cover 13 of the 15 industry sectors in California. The two that are not represented on here are agriculture and energy. And as you heard in the last panel's presentation, we're working at North High School to establish a community garden that will take the place of the agriculture program. And then we also work with Grid Solar Alternatives. They're the solar program, and that'll cover the area of energy. So we'll have representation in all 15 industry sectors. So a little bit of data. We talked a little bit about metrics and measurement. Again, we have 38 pathways. But I think the biggest piece here is 94 CTE courses. A number of them, 43, are in the STEM field, and 20 are in the area of VAPA. 70 of those 94 courses are UC A through G, so we're making the connection to college for our students. Again, 34 courses are articulated, most of them here in the Riverside City College or in the district. We also partner with Cerritos College and Chaffey College where we can't make those connections here. The one that we're most proud of, though, is the 60,000 hours of work-based learning for our students. We want our students out in industry. It's great to get the classroom knowledge, but we want our kids out in the public. So last year we had at least 60,000 hours of work-based learning for our students. And then we had almost 5,000 students in 2017-18 that were enrolled in a CTE course. And just a few pathway highlights. At Arlington and Ramona, we have some health pathways, but at Arlington, they're focused on the research portion of it. So it's a very STEM-based program, looking at things, getting our students prepared to enter college to be able to research cures for cancer, different health issues. At Ramona, you'll see a couple girls over there, they're working on a cadaver table. Without funding for CTE, we wouldn't be able to purchase something as nice as that. And they're able to actually take bodies that were donated to science. They can go through all the way from the skin all the way down to flesh and bone and find out the different parts of the body. So that's exciting. At North, we have a law academy. Those students are actually out quite a bit in the field with police officers at DUI checkpoints and a number of other things. They're learning the practical skills of law. The young lady in the middle there is learning how to take fingerprints off of a desk. And then a few other ones, graphic design at King, $350,000 printer that we wouldn't have been able to purchase without significant CTE funding. At Lincoln, our continuation high school, we have a number of kids that are at risk. They drop out or they are far behind. We want to get them re-engaged in education. And one way we've been able to do that is to put together an auto tech program. What's interesting about that program is it takes place within a regular classroom, so there's no home for that yet. We're working on a partnership with our adult education program to build a building for that program. Using our CTE incentive grant funds, we'll actually fill it with all the equipment that's necessary. And then at Poly High School, we have students that are learning how to write music, record music, and produce music. So those are a few of our pathway highlights. But it's really important for us to spend time connecting to our community. And one of the ways that we did that, you'll see a picture, these pictures up here on the left-hand side of the screen. We held an industry partner showcase back in May. We invited as many of our industry partners to come. They talked to the students directly. I can get up, I can share all of my information. Teachers can get up and share their information. Industry partners don't want to hear that. They want to talk to the students. They want to know what the students are learning and what they know. So we had about 40 industry partners that showed up that night. We're looking to expand it in the future. Thankfully, we have a great partner here in the city of Riverside, Greater Riverside Chambers of Commerce. There's a great partnership making those connections to college, career, and industry. And then just a few weeks ago, we held a college and career readiness conference at Ramona High School, and we had 9 or 10 of our pathways sharing information for students that were coming to hear about either college or what it was going to be, how life was going to be at the high school level. We've also put together a couple of extended learning opportunities on the left here. Our summer intensive program, we have a partnership with the City of Riverside Public Utilities, the Police Department, the Fire Department. We do a week-long 40-plus hour intensive. The students get a chance to work with the industry partners. They develop a product that they share at the end of that week in kind of a Shark Tank. Our industry partner for that is Bournes Engineering. Gordon Bournes is a great support for that program. And the kids love it because there's a cash prize at the end, and the cash prize is donated by Mr. Bournes, so that's fantastic. But what about those students that don't take a CTE class, that are unprepared to enter the work field? We've created a couple of programs. The first one is Clean and Green, up there on the right. Our students that are at risk, that are close to graduating but need a little bit of a push to the finish line, we bring them in, we give them a number of weeks of custodial training, a number of weeks of greenscape training, some weeks of soft skill training. We do interviews. We bring in industry partners that do actual job interviews. The students don't know that they're being interviewed, but they get a chance to practice, and a number of them are hired. And the goal is for those students to complete high school, complete our program, and when they're done, we put them into our subline in greenscape and custodial management over the summer, so they have a job at the end if they finish the program. What's great is Norco College stepped up last year, and they actually are taking our students that finish that program and they're now in the apprenticeship programs. And then, of course, you heard about grid solar alternatives, just giving kids the opportunity to learn how to install solar panels, get a chance to go out 2 days full bill. They're under 18 now, building panels and install. It's a great way to give back to the community. Not a problem. And then finally, I want to finish with the career continuum. In Riverside, we look at it as career preparation with ongoing education. So students don't necessarily have to go right to college, but they need to understand that after they finish high school, there's always an educational component. We need to be lifelong learners. We're backfilling our career exploration at the elementary school level. We want our kids to start thinking about careers. They can start thinking about what it means to enter the world of work. As they get into middle school, the goal is for them to engage in career preparation. What does it mean to be in a specific field or industry? And then again, at the high school level, we want them out. We don't want them sitting in class. We want them out actually doing the work, leading to employment. And again, continuing that education, whether it be certification at the community college level, trade school, 2-year, 4-year. I hate to say school of hard knocks. Sometimes that happens too. But that is Riverside Unified. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Christine DeMemo. I'm the Dean of Instruction for Career and Technical Education here at Riverside City College. Thank you, Senator, for having us today. Oops. Okay, so what is RCC, Career and Technical Education? We're specialized programs in skilled trades, modern technologies, applied sciences, and career preparation. Our CTE programs are designed to be completed in a short time at low cost and lead directly to employment. They require an industry advisory committee meeting to keep courses and programs relevant, along with labor market data. Riverside City College offers more than 80 certificate and/or degree patterns in 11 different industry sectors. So what does RCC CTE offer? We have our cosmetology program that started in 1945 and includes cosmetology, esthetician, and soon barbering, along with some non-credit. We have our culinary arts program, which we have a new apprenticeship program in culinary, along with a new baking and pastry program. And we have some non-credit options that will be happening as well. We have our School of Nursing, which is our registered nursing, vocational nursing, and the new certified nursing assistant program that was started with our strong workforce dollars that you heard of earlier. We also have our welding technology. We're developing new pathways to get students in and out quicker. We have our air conditioning and refrigeration program, which we have new curriculum in development with regards to building and energy systems professional, which is a regional strong workforce program. We have our installation program coming online, and we will be buying a tiny house for that installation. In our automotive technology and auto body program, we have new hybrid vehicles that were purchased through regional strong workforce dollars. We have regional curriculum, which allows our students to go to any community college and transition through the program and complete at any college that they attend. And our RCC automotive program has been recognized as one of the best programs in the state of California. We have our paralegal studies and pathway to law program. What you see here are our students that were visiting UCLA School of Law and the Los Angeles Law Forum in October. And the Law School Admissions Council fully funded this overnight trip for our students. And so we're really excited about watching this program grow and our partnerships that we'll have. Ron mentioned North High School, so our goal is to really partner and expand the Pathway to Law program. It's also recognized through the Accreditation Council of Business Schools and Programs, which is a nationwide accreditation council, and there are only 2 community colleges in the state of California that have this accreditation, us and then one up north. We have our Applied Digital Media and Printing program, which aligns with our Skills USA. We have our advertising group, our graphic communications, and the graphic imaging group. I won't read about Skills USA because I'm sure most of you are familiar with that, but we do promote that here at RCC. It's a really big component of what we do and how we're successful with our students. We have our film, television, and video, also known as FTV, that is going to be soon partnering with our business and our Applied Digital Media to integrate a new makerspace bus that you will be seeing around town, out into the community, and with our K-12 partners. We also have our photography program, which includes this photo here, which was taken by one of our students. I think it instills a lot of peace, so I thought I'd include it. We have our sign language interpreting program, which is expanded to help our local community in the need for our sign language interpreters. We also have our early childhood education program. We have new associate degrees that were developed that were especially focused on elementary teacher education, child and adolescent development, and a new focus on special ed. We have our computer information systems. We have a partnership that we had with the NASA program, where they sent a number of our students down to the Johnson Space Center, where they developed 2 different forms of programming, including integrated I'm going to say this wrong, but I'm going to try. An integrated hand glove that the astronauts used on the International Space Station. We did compete with other 4-year universities, and someone asked us whether or not we won. And the answer was, well, this wasn't a competition, but we did place right up with MIT. I'm just going to leave it there. We have our computer application and office technology program, which also is accredited along with our computer information systems program and our Pathway to Law. We have our business information worker, and one thing that we learned from our industry partners is they really wanted us to focus on those employability skills, also known as soft skills. And so we've developed a lot of non-credit pathways to help our students really gain those skills so they can go out and be really productive in the workforce. Our business administration program is something that is dear to my heart. We have what we call the Business Administration Associate Degree for Transfer program, and it's a cohort program that allows guaranteed seats and guaranteed time to completion. So within 2 years, a student will have an associate degree and will be able to transfer. We also have the non-credit pathways employability skills, as I mentioned before, and a new focus on entrepreneurship. As nowadays, the students aren't in jobs for 23 and 30 years. They're now in it for 2 or 3 years, and they want to know what that next gig is. So we want to prepare our students for those kinds of opportunities as well. So one thing that we really like to focus on is whether or not we're meeting our metrics, whether or not we're doing what we need to do for our community and our industry partners. And what's really nice is the CTE outcome survey was something that was done statewide, and they compared our results with the state average. And so what we found was, come on, there we go, that according to RCC, the key results is there was an $8.33 overall change in hourly wages after completing training at RCC. That's great because the statewide average was only 8. 56% of the overall change in hourly wages came from after completing training with us. 53% was the statewide average. 75% of the respondents reported being employed for pay. Thank goodness, we want them to have a job. 37% of the respondents reported transferring to another college or university, where the statewide average was only 34. And 92% of the respondents reported being very satisfied or satisfied with their training at RCC. Statewide, that was 91%, so we're doing pretty good. Strong workforce, as you had heard earlier, some of the strong workforce updates. RCC was awarded $2.127 million each, local round 2 and round 3 funding for 2018 through 2020. Since 2016, this funding has totaled more than $5 million. RCC was also awarded over $1.4 million in regional strong workforce funds for round 2 and 3. For these are projects that we do that are linked in common. So for example, the automotive program and the regional curriculum. All funds were awarded knowing that many metrics must be met, including increased enrollment, increased completion, and increased employment. We are looking forward to partnering with our K-12 partners so that we have regional projects in common. So with regards to the strong workforce, one thing that I really think is great is that the Chancellor's Office often recognizes community colleges for a job well done. And so in 2018, RCC was awarded 14 different stars. 1 gold star for registered nursing, which meant that we had an earnings gain, that there was the people that were finishing the program were getting a livable wage, and that they had a job in a related field. So that was our gold star. We had a silver star in our early childhood education program and an additional 12 bronze stars. So I think we're doing okay so far. So we have some innovative partnerships and opportunities that we can focus on, including our K-12 partnerships. We do have a dual enrollment program that are guided pathways with Riverside, Alvord, and Jurupa Unified School Districts that include pathways in business administration, liberal studies, pathway to law, computer science, cybersecurity, and a number of different certificate patterns. Our strong workforce funding projects in common, we want to make sure that there is a seamless pathway from high school to college. And our outreach, some of the things that we're doing is we have our 5th annual Non-Traditional Employment for Women Conference, which brings over 350 junior high school girls and makes sure that they understand that there are other areas in CTE that they should be aware of, such as automotive or welding or HVAC. We have our 3rd annual We Are CTE at RCC Senior Day, which is going to be held March 13th. And that we invite over 1,500 seniors on campus to get a little taste of all of the programs that we offer in CTE. And we do monthly visits to our local high schools. The one thing that we find as a challenge, as most have said, is we have challenges with apprenticeships. So RCC Culinary Academy has an apprenticeship program where we have placed 15 students, which doesn't seem like a lot, but for those that are in apprenticeship, that's huge. They've placed in apprenticeships. We also have 6 that have traveled into Europe to complete some of their apprenticeship work in culinary. But we have this thing called the big idea. California needs to invest in businesses that invest in their workers. Apprenticeship brings business into the educational process, and they should be incentivized to do this. AB 151 and AB 1569 were introduced in California and failed to pass in the past 2 years due to the administrative costs laid on the Division of Apprenticeship Standards, and whether or not the employer tax credits, which is what we're trying to offer, would significantly increase the use of apprentices in the state. So the one thing that we find is another challenge is we want to change the image. We want to translate career and technical education to the community so that career education becomes the primary as to the educational journey of any college student. We want our college students to get a job. All of us do. I'm a parent of them. I want my child to get a job, especially in the field that they're passionate about. Some careers require extensive college education, where some only require an industry-recognized certificate. Both are equally important to our economy. We want to help modify the minimum quals for community education faculty in the areas of career education so that field experience counts equally or more importantly than the college degree. So with that, I thank you.
Senator Roth. Thank you very much for allowing us to present today. I'm very excited about being here. I think what we do in the Corona-Norco Unified School District is pretty exceptional. And I want to start by saying that Corona-Norco Unified is the 8th largest school district in the state of California. And so we have a lot of people employed, over 5,000 employees. We range from TK, pre-kindergarten, up to adult ed. So we try to meet the needs of all of our students. When we talk about career technical education, the way I really wanted people to know about it is CTE is STEM. There is no separation between the two. They are the same thing, and no matter how you put it out there, they are the same. And one of the ways that we talk about parents on that is I'm due to get a 1927 Model A Ford, and some of you have heard me say this before. Now I can work on that car because I have the skills to do that. That's vocational education. I do not have the skills to work on my 2018 Jeep Grand Cherokee. That's career technical education, and that's STEM. So I want to share a little bit about what we do in our district as far as our teachers. I work with 80 career technical education teachers, 712. Now, not all of them are full-time CTE teachers. However, most of them are single subject credentialed teachers, and I expect that our teachers to be both professional educators as well as have the industry experience that goes along with it. We have 14 industry sectors out of the 15 in our school district, which covers 50 pathways at 5 comprehensive high schools, 2 alternative education high schools, and 11 intermediate schools. We fully believe in 712 pathways, and we believe that our students can be college and career ready. When you look at the district as a whole, over the last 4 years, 4.5 to 5 years that I've been in my position, we have increased our enrollment by almost 40% in those 5 years since we've received funding. These particular pictures, the one down here on the bottom with the orange cones, that's Amazon, and we are working with them in several different situations. Amazon provided a donation to one of our intermediate schools for VEX Robotics, so we're working on the manufacturing in that area. The bigger picture behind it is at our biggest industry event of the year, our CTE Expo, where we do job interviewing. Mock interviews are presented there, but all of our high schools come in and present what they're doing for our 8th graders. We also have business and industry that come in and support this activity. The young ladies in the front are in engineering and architectural class, and they're demonstrating the software that they use in that. And then you can also see we have the video design pathways in the back. Just a few student projects, because that's what we're really here all about. And when you talk about the metrics and how we measure what our students do, this particular project is a little robot, and it's close to walking once the individual student gets the programming all worked out. But all the pieces come off of a 3D printing machine within the school site. And of course he has to get the wire and the motors. But this student is an amazing student, does stuff like this, it has a flexible gear in it. And you're more than welcome to look at that afterwards. This student was on our CNC team in Skills USA that placed second nationally. That young man is just recently graduated and through the Norco College apprenticeship, graduated from high school. We're not talking college. Graduated from Norco High School, is at the apprenticeship with Caldrolics. His father is sitting here, who also happens to be the principal of Norco High School. More logistic technology, supply chain technology. We do have these instruments and these different modules at Norco High School. Corona High School has a STEM Academy. Of course, it's the official name of it is this Corona STEM Academy, but we have 3D printers. We move into the manufacturing equipment, the robotic arms. industry standard CNC mills, TMP1 from Haas, variety of industry standard equipment. We do certifications in Snap-on. These are precision tool instruments that we're using across the board in our auto shop and in our manufacturing labs. We talked about money not being available. These programs up here, without the California Career Trust Grant and the CTE Incentive Grant, we would not be building these kinds of programs. The picture up here in the corner is a CNC welding or a cutting machine over at Corona High School. We have gutted that shop, new paint job, new electrical, the whole bit, probably putting about $500,000 into it by the time we're done. And we will have a full Lincoln welding lab there that we hope to put out industry certificated certificates. Yeah, I'll get it out there. We're also in that lab, we're partnering with the Corona Norco Adult Education Program, and our teachers will be working with students in one of the areas. I think we're also doing auto mechanics and looking maybe at a couple other areas also. Our newest pathway, which we're the most excited about, and I don't believe there's really anybody locally that has the extent of this program. These 4 gentlemen are pilots, and the 3rd gentleman over came to me 4 years ago, and he's a United Airlines pilot. He also works with the Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals. Came to me and said, we need an aviation program in this district. That was 4 years ago. We just started the program this semester. And so at this bottom picture is girls that are learning how to read aviation maps. And there is our lab of about $450,000 worth of aviation simulators. We will be putting out pilots. And next year, we hope to expand this into the air traffic controllers and where we have dual training going on. But our pilots are amazing. And it is what's unique about it, really. Industry came to us and said, we want you to do this. Took me a while to get it off the ground, but once we had the right people, we actually have an instructor on staff at Corona High School who is not only the band director, he happens to be an FAA licensed instructor, flight instructor. And so it's worked out really well. We also have moved into the medical sciences, and we work with Reach Out and a variety of other organizations. I had to go out and practice and help with their final before they go out into clinical, so they got to use both my arms because they do have to draw blood and be proficient at it before we allow them out into the field. Biotechnology, we have 2 programs that do have the more advanced biotechnology programs if those individuals want to be doctors, neurosurgeons, that kind of stuff. We also put kids into internships, and they're recognized for those internships. We just with Riverside Community College District, we have 28 articulated courses, and we had 952 students awarded credit for the articulated credit for those courses. Junior high, we are the intermediate schools. We really do believe in the 712 structure, and of course the 714, but with us 712. These are a group of students from River Heights Intermediate School that are participating in the JUMP program, which is the Student Youth Organization for Health Occupations at the intermediate school level. Some of our intermediate schools students also having a business meeting with a couple of our Amazon representatives. More traditionally, we have fashion design up at Santiago High School and Citrus Hills Intermediate School. And if you know anything about sewing machines, Berninas are some of the top of the line, and each of our schools have 30 Berninas that are industry standard type machines. Floral design, we have an extremely strong agricultural program. One of their highlights is their floral design program. And then again, traditional wood shops, but cabinetry and millworking at two of our high schools and one of our intermediate schools. We have a wood shop at Corona High School where the aviation program is, and I want to pursue with those teachers a little bit more of the crossover between the aviation and airplane building, where we have the welding program, and pursue that possibly more as an aviation program, much bigger than pilots rather than just a STEM program. And then we have two young men that are finishing up their aprons so that they can start their culinary arts part of their class. These are 7th graders. One of my favorite pictures, we've really taken off with our culinary arts program and have restarted that. The big group in the center, a bunch of intermediate students at El Cerrito Intermediate School, they actually made the cake over on the side, and I've got pictures to show that they did everything. And this cake was donated to a charity event where they were raising money for schools in Tanzania. The group over here on the side is 3 young men that catered their first event that I took some educators from San Jacinto over to Centennial High School, and they really did an outstanding job, but it was their first event. As far as the future, we look to continue to hire and train high-quality teachers, build, maintain, grow programs, develop and enhance our partnerships, and seek additional funding. Of course, we get Perkins, but if you're aware of Perkins, there's not a lot of money that comes from the federal government on that. For a district our size, we receive about $300,000. CTE incentive grant has been amazing. We would not be doing what we're doing without that money, as well as the Career Pathway Trust Grant. The K-12 Strong Workforce Grant, we are looking to partner with Norco College and with their launch program, but I'm also planning to reach out to RCC and Chafee to work along with the medical pathways of the apprenticeships and internships there. CTE Facilities Grant, if you're a district that has the money to match the grant, we are hoping to pull in $6 million, which we'll know in February, to help with our new construction out at Roosevelt, where we will have manufacturing and engineering and medical sciences. And then our LCAP, we contribute about almost $2 million just out of our LCAP in match to our grants. Oh, that came out funny. Sorry. So question S. Yes, thank you very much, and we'll talk a little bit more about it later, but some of our junior high students made a clock up here that's got the Senate seal on the back of it and has your name on the front of it.
Hi, I'm Maureen Sinclair, and I'm with Norco College. I'm going to do a little different spin on it because we're going to talk about some regional things along with our local, what we're doing at Norco College. The first thing is we've heard a lot about people talking about bridges. And education is all a matter of building the bridges, whether it's from high school to community college, to universities, or to the workforce. It's all about building those strong bridges. Okay, California Career Pathways Trust Grant. We heard a little bit about that today, and I'm one of the regional directors for a grant. We got just shy of $13 million over 2 years with a 4-year spend down. We're in our 4th year currently. We selected 3 industry sectors based on the need of the Inland Empire, which was first information and communication technology, manufacturing and product development and advanced manufacturing, health science and medical technology. We had a lot of partners. It's a huge region we live in. So we had 4 community colleges, 11 school districts, which encompassed 28 high schools, 3 adult and alternative learning centers, 1 middle school, Riverside Office of Education, Riverside Workforce Development Agency, and over 70 industry partners. We've so far served over 21,000 students in 3 years. We blew apart our matrix of 16,000 students in 3 years, and we still have a year left to go for our data to find out how much more. Each year we've definitely grown. And that's only, remember, in 3 of the industry sectors. So there's a whole lot of other sectors out there that this grant wasn't focused on. So if you can think of that we had 21,000 students just in these 3 sectors, what would it be with all the sectors in CTE? And we developed a dual enrollment program, and that's really what I'm going to focus on today is dual enrollment. But to explain that, we got to go back just a little bit on some of the other ways that you can turn around and collect college credit, which is, once again, building that bridge. So the first one is high school articulation agreements. In a nutshell, it's a high school class that meets the rigor of a college class in the same sector, and then is given through tests or through, it can be portfolios, it can be a lot of different ways that the student can actually earn college credit on their high school site by their high school teacher. So that's one way. Another way is concurrent enrollment. Now, concurrent enrollment is high school students coming over to the college campus and taking a college course, just like any other student at a community college. So they may have some fees involved, and they have to buy textbooks there. So that's a big stopper. Have you priced textbooks lately? For a math book, it'd be $250 for one math book, and that's for one semester. So it's extremely expensive. But they earn college credit, they earn a college transcript, just like any other college student. They do have to meet some minimums, minimum GPA. Normally they have to have their principals and a parent approval form with it. So there's a few little hoops that they have to jump through, but basically the campus is wide open to what they can teach, excluding physical education. That's one of the no-nos that they can't take in a concurrent enrollment class. And the big one is dual enrollment. Okay, dual enrollment through AB 288, which was a wonderful legislation, which allowed the community colleges to come onto the high school campus and teach a closed class, in other words, for just those high school students at that high school, or within the district. Some districts will allow busing from one high school to another. It's totally free. There are no textbook fees. There are no lab fees. There's no health fee. There's nothing. No fees at all. So it's really a wonderful, and they get regular college credit, just like they were sitting in a college course at Norco or RCC or San Jacinto. It doesn't make any difference. That is their high school transcript that they get to keep with them. And they do need a parent approval form and a principal or designee signature to say that this student will be successful in this. All rules apply to the community college. Also, so that means FERPA. And high school FERPA rules are a lot different than college FERPA rules. It's called cut the apron strings, mom and dad. And college professors don't talk to parents. So it's a big responsibility that that student has to step up to. But you know what? It's working. Some data for you on it. If you look at secondary enrollment from high school, like when they're going to enroll, pursuing a bachelor's degree, persistence in second term. We lose a lot of kids at that second term. They've got it the first term and something happens. So better persistence rates and better persistence rates from year 1 to year 2. And all of those categories, students that had taken dual enrollment courses did better, significantly better than your just average high school student going into the community college. Also, their GPA took a good bump. Their first year GPA was 2.62 versus 2.40. And cumulative GPA over 3 years, 2.60 to 2.4. And their college, the amount of units that they gain is higher, once again, with the dual enrollment student versus a non-dual enrollment student. So that's some significant data that's being produced to show the success rate of what the dual enrollment programs are doing. And that's not just at Norco College, that's a statewide. So what is Norco College doing with dual enrollment? Well, because of the CCPT grant, or the California Career Trust Pathway, that's a difficult name, Pathway Trust Grant, they turned around and it allowed us, because in our plan, regional plan, dual enrollment was part of that. So that helped fund some of that startup cost, because believe me, there is startup costs. Books and equipment. Someone said something about equipment and coming over and, well, what's the equipment for? Well, you've got a college course that has this list of equipment. You go to the high school where the class is going to be taught, they don't have that equipment. Who's going to buy it? Where are they going to get the money for it? I can tell you one electrical program is going to be $15,000 per school just to get the equipment in. And if it's a computer based, like we have gaming, you've got a computer lab, you've got to buy, because they have to be high-end definition type computers that's going to handle the gaming. So there is a huge cost to that. So we started with one high school, Eleanor Roosevelt. And our first year out, we had 173 students, and we thought we were hot. We were going for it. And actually, our numbers turned out pretty good. We had a over 77% success rate, which is a little bit better than the average community college student. So they were not only doing as well, but better than the community college students while they're in high school. Fast forward to this year, and we are now at 6 schools. And these are the breakdowns of the schools that we have. But we've gone from 173 students to 351 students in basically a year. So we can scale up relatively quick with this program. Once again, funding. So what does that mean for units? Well, every time you talk units, you talk savings and time for students. Because if they're earning the college credit in high school and they're not paying for the course, that means they're not paying for it when they hit college, and they're that much further down that path. They've not clarified that path, and they're keeping on the path. So we've had our first year, we had 775.5 units completed. Now, we took some liberties in assuming that all the kids are going to pass the courses they're in for this year. And we will come out with 1719 for units completed by the end of this year. Well, obviously we're not quite there yet, but when we do, that's our projection of units accomplished. That's a lot of money. Just even if you multiply it by $46 a unit, that's a lot of money, and that's money saved to the families and to their students. So, head count for next year. We're already looking at projections for next year. Next year, we're adding more different high schools. We're even trying, we're piloting an online high school with this. We're anticipating 844 students next year and a total of 3,220 units gained. Now we're talking some serious dollars. So with that, what's the ask? Well, we're asking Senator Roth, we need some help. And AB 280 is a wonderful legislation, but there wasn't funding attached to it. We need a fix because, as you well know, money doesn't come out of the sky. We got to get it from somebody, and we need that help in getting that through. As we found that many programs are very, very expensive. I can tell you textbooks for this semester alone were over $80,000 that needed to be bought by either the high school, high school district or high school, or the community college. That's huge. And you multiply that out, that's astronomical. So FTEs and ADA isn't alone to cover this cost. It's just not. It'll cover the instructor's cost, but who's running the program? Somebody's got to run the program, and that's not associated. I don't know where Dr. Roberts went, but Dr. Roberts mentioned something about guidance and counseling. That's a huge thing with dual enrollment. We make it mandatory that every student take a counseling course. Without exception, it's part of it. You want to be in this program, you have to take a counseling course. Well, that needs to be helped to be supported because that's going to support them all the way through. And we don't turn them away for tutoring or for any of those types of extra services at the college. Well, it all costs money, right? We all are aware of that. So we need some help because it's good for the students and it's good for our new economy, getting these students to work sooner, faster, and without debt. So thank you.
Let me ask a question about that before we're gonna well, let's thank her. But how does the funding work with ADA and K through 12 and you have a student come over to the community college and you go into the high school and teach? Yeah. Is there a split?
Well, no. There's different ways you can model it. Okay, there's a bunch of different ways. Typically, if it's, and that's a lot of it has to do with the unions, because college union and high school unions don't really talk about it. So, to be able to teach a dual enrollment course, because it's a college course, so it has to follow the community college minimum qualifications. If that teacher, a high school teacher, meets that minimum quality, we're all like, yeah, bring it on, because we need those CTE teachers and regular academic teachers to teach the program. Because of 288 is a pathway, most of ours are CTE programs that we offer.
And the high school pays
At
for
the
that.
No, the college does, because the way we're running in the classes after school, and that way it stopped a whole lot of union issues. You can run it during the day, but then if it's, let's say a high school teacher is going to teach the class, they meet minimum qualifications, and it's during their regular 5-period assignment, then ADA would pay for that, because they're a high school teacher already being paid to teach that section of the day.
And the community college would simply take it out of Hyde, then you would get no money for teaching it. Would you get any money for teaching that course in high school?
Well, the high school teacher, there's some, depending on how the CCAP agreement's made up, some will give a $500 stipend for the extra paperwork of having to put in a grade here and a grade there and that kind of situation. But they all become, we make it where they all become Norco College instructors. They become adjuncts to us. But if it's during their regular 5-period day, then the college isn't going to teach them or pay them, and the high school pay them. So generally, it's going to be then the high school that's going to take that cost on.
And so when the course is taught on the community college campus?
Not dual enrollment. Dual enrollment strictly at the high school.
Concurrent
campus.
enrollment.
Concurrent. That's all on the college. Concurrent's all on the college.
So when the high school student comes to the community college campus to take the course, what happens to the ADA?
Well, they've already completed their 240 minutes of high school.
Oh, I
This is
see.
outside of the day for concurrent enrollment. It'll be like if seniors off at 12 o'clock, they can do it in the afternoon or evening or a Saturday class.
So the real issue, in addition to startup costs, books, equipment, and all that,
Startup, yeah.
is the counseling piece.
Counseling piece is expensive, and someone to run the program. It doesn't run itself. It's a very hands-on program. If you wanted to be successful, you can throw stuff out there, and there's no follow-up. We have ed advisors for every high school has an ed advisor, and they go in generally a few times a week, and they meet with students that aren't doing well in the class. We're doing intrusive counseling, as we call it. They didn't show up for class. Well, the ed advisor will pull them out of a class and say, "Why weren't you in class? How come?" And they'll say, "I woke up late." Well, that's not a good excuse. Or if there's a problem, then, well, do you need tutoring? Are you having trouble? Is there a problem with the instructor in you? And they kind of are that intermediary person that kind of keeps the students on track. And that's what is crucial to making it a successful program, I feel. I really do. And I work with different community colleges and high schools throughout the state of California, setting up their CCAP agreements also.
Good. Well, thank you. Thank you for answering that. So, given the importance of logistics to our region, warehousing and all of that, and the rapid advances in automation, it's been suggested that we have groups of workers who either are or will soon be stranded, lacking the skills necessary to move into the automated jobs. And if that's the case, what are we doing to help this group of workers? We had a big debate, as you know, in Sacramento about online colleges and the community college and how best to deliver those services, and whether those services were actually going to help stranded workers who in many cases need hands-on opportunity to learn new equipment. Is that a fair question of this panel?
I think it's a very fair question. I don't even know if this is on, but I think one of the things that is really important to the community college is that our advisory committees are telling us what they need. Those are our industry partners that come in and say, we need to make sure that our workers, or the workers that we're going to get, are trained in specific equipment or specific curriculum. And so our goal is to make sure that we build that in a timely fashion so that we can meet that industry need, and then market it in such a fashion that if there are those that still need the retraining, that we're providing seamless opportunities for them to quickly get in and get the training that they need so they can get out into that workforce. So it's really driven by our industry partners. And so we know, just based on our own research, that the workforce is retiring out. The workforce needs new training, needs new experiences. And so with our industry partners leading that discussion of what they need, we're able to react and make sure that that curriculum and the equipment and all the things that we need and seamless short-term pathways are available to those that need to be retrained.
I seem to remember that within the community college district, the coursework necessary to upgrade the skills of, I will call them, stranded workers, the coursework, in some cases anyway, is being conducted at the employer's site.
Yeah, you can go. We have done that. We actually had a program with Amazon. We ran a couple courses there. What we're doing is getting that industry need from our industry advisory, and then we try and tailor something to their needs. And if it's just picking out a couple of the classes and putting them together and offering them in a series to their employees, then that's what we'll do. We're very flexible now in trying to meet that need. We're also running a lot of stackable certificates to a degree. In other words, childcare is a good one. You can start off with 6 units, and then you get a certificate and you can go work as like an 8, and then you get through 12 units, and then now you're can be a preschool teacher, and then you go on to your associate's degree. So we're looking at stackable certificates that get you out in the workforce while you're then going back and hammering out those classes for your AAAS degree and going on then to a university, or just stopping it when you have your certificate and you're happy with what you're doing and what you're making. And they just stop there and then say, well, maybe later on when life is better for me, I'll continue on.
And the information technology field, I think, is in management information systems, right. Another area where you...
Well, we have an ACE program, we call it, and it's a very condensed, a 2-year program that's condensed into 7 months. And it's for manufacturing and automation. So some of those workers that have been either displaced or they can't go anyplace because their jobs are slowly becoming obsolete, we're training them with those automation skills so they can go up and work with the equipment that's now all automated.
Now, with respect to online demand, have you seen demand for online education with respect to these industries where automation seems to be taking over?
I think a lot of times it's certain courses lend itself to being online, but if it's hands-on CTE, which a lot of it's hands-on, you just can't get that online.
Yeah, we're hearing from our students that they like the freedom to be able to take some of the lecture components online, but that's that face-to-face, hands-on lab component that they need to be on site to do.
That's what some of us were somewhat concerned about in Sacramento when we were engaged in this debate.
They're becoming blended classes too, where certain amount of the class is online, and then there's the hands-on component that you
So
have to come to the hands-on too.
Exactly,
So we're looking at blended programs to help. So those students that drive a long distance, which we have people drive from all over to come to a couple of our programs there, that will help with that.
Yeah, we like to call it hybrid.
Yeah.
Instead of fully online, we'll take the hybrid route where we have part of it's online to, again, accommodate those that are driving, and then we have the hands-on face-to-face component as well, mixed together.
Well, let me just say, I think you all, excellent presentations by everyone, actually. But you all are doing a great job, and let's thank this panel again. This is the time for public comment. This is a Senate hearing, so as we always do, we give the public an opportunity to take the mic and deliver any comments. So those of you who want to take advantage of public comment, please approach the microphone. And I typically don't set time limits. We'll see how this goes.
First of all, thank you very much. There we go. All right. Is that better? All right. First of all, thank you very much, Senator Roth, for hosting this. It's extremely important for us. My name is Johan Gallo. I'm with the California Automotive Business Coalition. We have worked very closely with education for over 25 years, donating over $2 million worth of equipment, providing school-to-work programs, and also over $100,000 in scholarship monies. The challenge that we see is with the local funding formula. Many of the school districts and the advisories that I sit on, while we look at a 2-to-1 ratio to match the dollars, they don't have the local funding to do it. And so many of the programs struggle to get the funding that's necessary. While we look at the labor requirements and the labor laws, many of the apprenticeship programs restrict the ages for the students to work in various programs to 18. And so it limits the amount of time that you can have students working on the various programs. So I think the biggest challenge we have, especially with automotive and the growing technologies and the cars that we drive today, is we frankly need a smarter student today. And many of the STEM programs really should have automotive included, and they don't. So with that, we appreciate the time and everybody's participation today, and we think there's a lot that still needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Yes,
hello, Senator Roth. My name is Veronica Nieves. This is my colleague, Lee Chang. We represent the adult schools. So we're representing a population that has never completed their K-12 education and who kind of falls within a gap. We provide an on-ramp to that community college career if they want that. And we are, in a sense, providing a small setting to prepare them to the college life. A lot of them need that support to build their independence toward education and academics. They need the basics. Some of them come from foreign countries and don't have those basics. So we fill in that gap. So we really appreciate you giving us your support, and we want the continued support. And some of the things that we're doing include what's been mentioned here, but we're providing it to a population that is not yet ready to make that leap into community college. And so they do need, in a sense, they're in a cradle, in a bigger cradle, and we provide that support for them. So my colleague Lee is going to speak more to that.
So one models that we're trying to promoting, I think not just in South Bay adult schools, but Los Angeles Unified Adult Schools as well, as IET models, integrated training education, right? So which means that we co-teach in the workforce. So CTE teachers and ABE instructors that they teach together, co-teach each other. Early on, I was listening to the panels. Couple Ron, Randy, and Dr. Gina kind of mentioned about continuing education and those schools, but it would just briefly touching base on it. But the data we have over here is over approximately 5.2 million adults without the HSD, high school diploma or high school equivalency. So which that adult school are addressing to that and filling with that gaps. And so that's why we want to promote and we want to speak out.
Well, thank you for your comments, and thank you for what both of you, what you do for all of us. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. I'm Jody Slider. I'm the About Students Regional Consortium Director for Adult Education here in Riverside. So I'm here with colleagues from Los Angeles. But I am a local adult education administrator, and I support the adult schools and community colleges here in Riverside that promote adult education learning. And to echo what they shared earlier is that adult education provides that gap for adult students. So if you're over 18 and you have finished high school, or maybe you haven't finished high school and you need to get into a career, you need to get into college, adult education is really the gap that provides those services. And one of the things that is happening here in Riverside is that we are redeveloping our career technical education programs. Those we call, in one of the 7 program areas in AP is short-term CTE. It lends itself to preparing students for college and entering and being successful in the CTE programs in college. These are for adults, these are for parents, these are for those of us that are a little older, as you mentioned earlier, that need to reskill and to develop skills in the 21st century. We've got to learn what those new techniques are. We've got to learn that. And that's what adult education provides. And it's a part of that collaboration. It's part of the continuum. It's a part of the pipeline for career technical education at Norco. And I'm fortunate to work with Dr. Gina Boster. In Corona Norco, we're starting adult education programs utilizing the work that Gina has done, as well as the teachers, in order to collaborate for adults.
Thank you for doing what you do. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Ty Morgan. I'm actually a credentialed CTE educator in health science, medical technology, product development, and manufacturing. I also hold a patent in utility design, and I would be willing to help all you all are doing a great job, but I would be willing to help on the curriculum development side. My interest actually is the students themselves and the cross-functioning of the programs that you are offering to be able to challenge the child of the 21st century. I also was a participant of the think tank with Harvard Graduate School of Education, and my concern with the cross-functioning of the courses, like for instance, as an example, your bioscience here at Riverside. Right now, the UC system over at Riverside, UC College is offering a biomedical device program. The medical device industry is going to boom by 2025. Where are we as far as community education? The labor laws statistics show that the community college is negative in construction, in manufacturing, in certain areas I'm sure that you're aware of, and you are trying to do better with that. But the 21st century child or student is very mentally challenged, where they need more, when I say mentally challenged, they need more of a challenge as far as traditional education, and be able to cross-function. Like some of them may like medicine, but they're in engineering. So are we putting together programs that can offer that to the students? And I guess to you, Senator Roth, if the colleges, community ed, if they don't come up with those programs, is it still going to be a threat that the funding's going to be cut for community ed if those programs aren't put together?
Well, we'll take a look at that, and I certainly appreciate your comments, ma'am. We need all the help we can get, so thank you for volunteering. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Kit Alvarez, and I'm the administrator for ROP, Career Technical Education, Adult Ed, Adult and Corrections, and a bunch of other things with the San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools office. I'm also the coordinator for the Career Technical Education Designated Subjects Credential Program at UCR Riverside Extension. I also serve as a Career Technical Education Incentive Grant Technical Assistance Provider serving the K-12 family here that we have. And lastly, I'm a constituent, so I just thought I'd share that.
Well, thank you.
I do want to thank you for your interest in career technical education. We are a very collaborative region here in the IE, and career technical education has been important for us for a very long time. I'd also want to share that I appreciated Ryan earlier today recognizing that ROCPs still exist, and I appreciate that recognition. Wendy brought up the need for equipment and supplies on an ongoing basis. Hearing that coming from workforce development versus education is important to me, because it means that it's recognized broader than through education. Because we sometimes, when we toot our own horn, sometimes it just starts to sound maybe not as genuine. The ongoing need for sustainable and dedicated funding versus funding via competitive grant programs is important. Dr. Boster mentioned that she spent 4 years in developing a single pathway program and is just barely getting started in its implementation. So oftentimes those grant timelines and spending timelines are not consistent or congruent with the needs for developing a high quality pathway program. So that's, to me, in conflict. So we're throwing dollars out there, but it's in conflict with what we need to do some solid planning and really get something fine and of high quality put in place. I'd also like to just simply remind you that the ROP system does have added value. The fact that some of us are still here today shows that there's some still interest with our system. And what we can do is help to improve student access, because students who attend ROP classes can cross district boundaries. And so without direct funding, some of that can be a little bit tougher to do these days. So that's something that was really wonderful when we were able to operate on a broader regional basis and expand work-based learning opportunities for students and enhance access to CTE teachers that don't compromise district FTE limitations. ROCPs collect and use data. However, we're not able to report our data into any particular state system. The only system right now that we're able to implement, and it's tends to be broken most of the time, is the system for reporting Perkins information. So we would like to report our data, but we're not allowed to report into CalPADS, and we're also we have limited access to CalPAS Plus. There's also one last point I'd like to make, and that is there is some disparity in the legislation for the strong workforce, whereas ROPs that are operated by joint powers have a 1-to-1 match requirement, and ROPs that are operated through a county office, such as my organization, I have a 2-to-1 match to meet. So I just wanted to share that disparity. That's all I got.
Well, I thank you for your comments. I look forward to working with you. We're certainly going to have to crack the nut on this data collection and metrics report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alvarez. I knew she was going to bring up the 1-to-1 match because I'm from an ROP. My name's Tom Hansen. I'm from Fremont. I work in a JPA. We serve 3 districts, and there are dozens of JPAs in the state that serve multiple districts. There are all kinds of interesting questions that are headed towards not just community colleges, but K-12 LEAs, ROPs such as the one I'm from. One of the issues about syncing 9-12 CTE programs, 7-12 CTE programs, and what you find in the community colleges is that all of these individual programs have decided to do the CTE that they're doing. They decided to do that for themselves, for the most part, over some period of time. My program runs 9 programs in 9 sectors, but my community college, the closest community college, doesn't run in all 9 of those sectors. So somebody in the K-12 Strong Workforce Pathway arena, somebody is going to determine how and what the opportunities are to build these bridges. So we're real concerned about, well, if the community college that's the closest to us, or maybe not even very close to us, has articulated programs for our students, how's that gonna look? One of the big questions for us is when we hear from K-12 Strong Workforce Program folks that they're going to fund 30-month projects or pathway strengthening efforts, but not continually fund these pathway strengthening efforts, then their expectation is that the district's LCAP be written essentially promising that they'll take over funding those pathway developments. So it kind of looks from the K-12 perspective that the $150 million K-12 Strong Workforce Program dollars are going to be engineered and programmed in a way to make K-12 LEAs kind of face in a direction that they may not be facing. And we're afraid that $150 million in sporadic, inconsistent funding isn't going to be enough to really get the attention of every district superintendent in the state to rewrite their LCAPs so that they hope to get some funding in the next 12 months, 24 months, or 30 months. So that's a big concern of ours. But you know, we heard from some great school programs today, the community college and districts. You know, that was really, really neat to see these things were going on. But I don't know that in every case the district decided to do the innovative CTE program because the college had a great uptake for them, or the college decided to do a really innovative and in high demand program, and there was a great feeder system for them. So how those systems connect, I think we'll find out in a year or so. How those systems are required to connect is going to be a real big question. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Well, until we develop a system of metrics, goals and objectives and measurements that are circulated in a transparent way, you're going to still have those questions, and so are we. And I think the metrics will help us sort out who needs to work together, who's not working together, and which programs are working and which ones aren't. But I thank you for your comments, and I will go to school on that, plus the 1-to-1, 2-to-1 matches.
You don't have to go to school on the 1-to-1 match. Just put that at the bottom of the list. I'd just like to point out.
Oh, I forgot where you were.
Yes, on the bottom of the list.
I'll tell my colleague Bob Wykowski.
Yes, Senator Wykowski is a good friend of ours in Fremont. There is a very wide variety, a pretty wide range of CTE development at different community colleges up and down the state. I mean, what we saw in these examples here from RCC and Norco are probably the exception to the rule. We see excellent CTE programs in community colleges all over the place, but to have really fully developed comprehensive CTE at community colleges isn't everywhere. So there are going to be pockets of challenges out there with K-12 Strong Workforce dollars. And we just hope it goes as well as it can go.
You're making me even more proud. But we'll have to work on that, because it's not just one region, it's the entire state. Any other public comment? Well, to all of you who've had the fortitude to sit through this, thank you very much. And to our presenters, I want to thank each and every one of you for what you continue to do, have done, and what you continue to do for our region and our state every day. It's pretty clear we've got some things to work on. I've taken some notes. We've got to continue the collaborative K-14 CTE efforts, and in those areas of the state where it's not quite so collaborative, we've got to make it more so. We have to develop, as I've mentioned a couple times, and the presenters certainly covered, standardized metrics for CTE in the state of California. Frankly, that's the way we're going to be able to evaluate the programs that are in place, and it's the way we're going to be able to redirect funding in a state that almost always is budgetarily challenged. We need to address some of these challenges that were identified today, from how do we find more qualified CTE instructors and deal with the dual credentialing issue. We have to facilitate the development of the apprenticeship programs, the type that were discussed. We need to incentivize employers to utilize workers and apprentices, and we certainly need to meet equipment needs and change the rules, the funding rules, if we need to, in order to make sure that equipment is where it needs to be in order to provide the training. We need to modify, sounds to me like, a bunch of rules, including funding and the rules surrounding dual and concurrent enrollment. And finally, I heard this message loud and clear, we need to secure ongoing funding in a predictable way. Not only adequate funding, but predictable funding year over year. As I think I said at the beginning, this is very important work that you all are doing, and I'm privileged to join with you on this. And we need to succeed. Our region and our state depending on all of us to make this. So thank you all for attending and participating. Senate hearing, and we are now Hey, thank you. Head back.